Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Clovis City Council meeting of August 5th, 2024, our first meeting back after a small summer recess, and I'm 1 minute late, so I guess I forgot about the 6 o'clock timing. So we're glad that you are all here tonight. I will call the meeting to order, and I will ask Councilmember Bessinger to lead us in the flag salute.
Ladies and gentlemen, following the flag salute, if you could stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'd like you, if you would remain standing for just a moment, I'd like to just take a moment of silence for 3 people that may have made a difference in our community that we have lost. Thank you. We'll miss his cookies quite a lot. And finally, I'd like to take a moment and have a moment of silence for Sean Burdine. Sean and his dad, Brent, sat in the back row back there, and Sean was a very regular attendee at our meetings. And while not serving in a traditional role as a council member, as a planning commissioner, Sean was a very engaged, active community member. He also was insightful, quick to say if we made a mistake or we're going in the wrong direction, and supportive when that was also in order. And I think Sean represented the future of our community. We lost Sean on July 20th, 2024 at the age of 33. So if we might just honor Sean and all those youth whose voices we need to hear, we'll take a moment to honor his memory, please. Thank you so much. And may we always keep their memories in mind as we serve this community. Thank you for that. Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Baskel.
Here.
Councilmember Bessinger.
Here.
Councilmember Moanasua.
Here.
Councilmember Pierce. Here. And Mayor Ashbeck.
I'm here. First of our public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to come before the City Council on an item that is within our jurisdiction but not on our agenda for tonight. And we ask that if you have anything in that category, we'd ask you to step forward, and if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, that would be great. And we look forward to hearing from you. Too slow.
Good evening. My name is Bill Scott. I live at 341 Evergreen. My colleagues and I live in Fresno County. We are volunteers with United Sovereign Americans, not spokespersons. United Sovereign Americans is a nationwide organization with thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states. Today, we come to you as concerned citizens sharing an alarming information about our state's voter roll database. Research of the state's voter database was done through hundreds of hours of research conducted by highly qualified credentialed data teams. An analysis of the 2022 election researched by these highly qualified data teams using only official data provided by California election officials indicates a serious issues with compliance of federal law. We are here to present to you and the public the results of the aforementioned analysis, showing the votes cast, counted, and certified may not all be valid and accurate under the Constitution and under the law. We are not here to cast any blame, nor aspersions on any elected official. We do not suggest any candidates in any race have wrongly won or lost their races, nor do we advocate for the overturning or rerunning of any past election. Tonight, we will present to you a resolution demanding an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections, along with a summary of our findings and the laws that apply. Though you bear no direct responsibility for anything in the electoral process, we come to you, our closest elected representatives, for support and action. We're asking that you listen to the resolution and take the necessity for valid elections seriously by adding the resolution to your next agenda. Thank you. Our next two speakers will read the resolution in two parts, and our final speaker will conclude our presentation.
Thank you so much.
My name is Leslie Swan. I live here in Fresno County. I'm here to read into the record the first portion of the USA resolution. Resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. Whereas it is the duty of our election officials to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion and manipulation. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the following four tenets of an election are upheld. 1, the voter rolls must be accurate. National Voter Registration Act 1993. 2, votes counted must be from eligible voters. U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 2. 3, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. Number 4, there can be no more than 1 in 125 ballots in error by the voting system, Help America Vote Act 2002. Whereas the analysis of the California 2022 general election has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that appear to violate both federal and state laws, including 5,886,198 ineligible or uncertain registration violations found within the California State Voter Roll database, 2,776,939 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrations, 123,785 more votes counted than voters who voted. No one knows who cast them. 2,776,849 apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. The maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election was 90. Certification as defined by law is an attestation of accuracy and compliance. The certification of the 2022 election appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. Whereas these findings trample legal accuracy requirements of the voting system during a federal election, and whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted, whereas the 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of the guaranteed protection of our natural rights under a government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our way of life, and the fabric of these United States.
Thank you. Must be a couple more whereases coming.
My name is Cindy Fukuyama, and I am here to read the last part of the resolution very quickly. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to prove relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of law. Number 1, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility required to register to vote, not anonymous attestation. 2, voter rolls certified, accurate, and available for public review, challenge 30 days before the start of early voting. Voters added after that date must bring proof of citizenship, identity, and address in person to qualify at a polling place. 3, hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency. Where imaging technology is used for tabulation, the security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. 4, systems, machines, and security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law for fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. 5, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witnesses after being given full and effective observation rights. Candidates and trained citizens must be allowed immediate access to ballots, ballot images, and cast vote records. 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations, and systems, must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability and witnessing transfer of paper records. 7, a National Institute of Standards and Technology compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2, must be performed. These audits are to be conducted by qualified, insured, and bonded security, forensic, or financial auditors, not personnel from within the election system. 8, if the total of unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in the state for those candidates affected unless the issues can be corrected and resolved by a manual hand recount and a full review of records. And number 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration through certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded. Be it resolved that the Clovis City Council members stand in support with the concerns and remedies presented here. We implore the Fresno Board of Supervisors, California Legislature, federal legislatures, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, judges, and both California Secretary of State and county registrars of voters to cooperate and fulfill these firm requests of the people.
Thank you.
My name is Sharon Toroyan, and I am here to conclude our presentation. What you heard tonight is a powerfully written resolution outlining massive inaccuracies in our 2022 election from registration through certification. The resolution delineates meaningful remedies that will proactively protect the validity of the 2024 general election for all Americans. Your written copy cites many U.S. Supreme Court precedents and federal and constitutional mandates that support the need for such actions. Large numbers of Californians have questions about the trustworthiness of our elections. Official data show these concerns are valid, and the law says resolving them is essential in securing our liberty. The cost for not fixing the enumerated problems is immeasurable. So we urge you to put this resolution on the agenda for the next City Council meeting where you can vote to join us in support of fair, honest, and valid elections. The United Sovereign Americans website showcases our initiatives nationwide and features some extremely informative election videos. We encourage you to visit uniteforfreedom.com and learn more about our organization and our goal to restore valid elections throughout our country. That's unite4freedom.com. Once more, uniteforfreedom.com. Right, unite4freedom.com. I have copies of the resolution that we just shared with you and would like to leave them with the clerk for your review. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Sharon, and all that presented. Thank you so much. Next. Hello.
Hello. My name is Vicki Goodrow. I am a Clovis resident, 22 years now. I am going to share with you an opportunity to support the Whole Vine Festival, which is happening at Fresno State, October 19th and 20th. It highlights and celebrates what is beautiful and worthy in the San Joaquin Valley. It is free to attend and free to park. We chose grapes because we were looking for a commodity that is Central Valley wide, that was family focused, and I have since learned that we're the only region in the entire United States that grows table grapes, raisin grapes, and wine grapes in one region. It's grown up and down the valley. It's beautiful and inspiring, and it has a long history in the Central Valley. Every element of the Whole Vine Festival is local, from Bakersfield up to Modesto. Local musicians, local artisans, local arts and culture, local food trucks, everything's local. The idea is we want to elevate the worth in the valley. In the context of celebration, we want to tell our story. The goal is to change the negative narrative over the valley. My encouragement to President Sandoval at Fresno State when I first presented this is that anything loved has the best potential of becoming more beautiful. But if you hate it, it doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. If something needs to be fixed, if you don't care for it, if you hate it, why fix it? So I want you, please, to consider participating in 3 ways. Show off Clovis at this festival. Every area in our San Joaquin Valley has some beautiful elements to it, and Clovis certainly has quite a bit. And I have to say that we bought in Clovis when we moved here from Pismo Beach based on the recommendation of a real estate agent. So words have power because we could have lived anywhere in the Central Valley. Extend hospitality to our neighbors. Clovis has a lot of strength, and I would encourage you that strength is for service. You have so much to offer the San Joaquin Valley and to lift up other areas in our valley. And then thirdly, we need support, sponsorship, and you can find that on our website. So with that, I know you have a long line of people behind me, but I'm available for questions. And if not, you can email me. My information is in that bag. So thank you for your consideration.
Now, is this something you just on your own decided it was time to lift up this valley? How did this come to be?
So when we moved here from Pismo Beach, we made a commitment to love the valley, to seek its good, to be solution-minded in regards to its problems, and to never speak angst against it. And I'll be honest, I learned that when I was on a missionary trip, and it was spoken to me in San Francisco, and I had a coming to Jesus moment there. So in moving here from Pismo Beach, I had some angst about the Central Valley. I didn't like 99. When I stayed on Blackstone, going to Sarah Summit, it was not very pretty. And then a colleague of ours was murdered in Mariposa years ago, and I just had this ball of judgment, and I just knew we couldn't come here with those judgments and serve. So I made a conscious decision to put those aside, and I made those 4 determinations, which didn't seem like it was earth-shaking at the time, but it has rooted around my heart. And after hearing people talk bad about the Central Valley, I just thought, what can be done? This negativity is not healthy. It's not healthy for Clovis. It's not healthy for Fresno. It's not healthy for any part of this valley. Yeah. So in the context of celebration, I want to tell our story. And over time, I think we can change the narrative.
That is just totally lovely. That is very nice. Where have you been the last 21 years? And you might be the only person I've ever heard that say, when I moved here from Pismo Beach. Normally it's the other way.
Right.
So you get
it's been
extra
good
credit.
to us. It's been really good to us.
That's super great.
And we have a debt of gratitude that, seriously, we are grateful to live in the Central Valley. So
very nice.
When people would, talk to me about where I moved from, that it was, I can't tell you how many times they treated me like I had 6 heads, like I was an idiot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like you moved from where?
Even people in Clovis.
Oh,
I was just shocked. So my thought is what, we need to speak better and pause the negativity and focus on what's beautiful and celebrate it, savor it. Oh, we had our first one last October, so I have proof of concept.
That's so great.
And I want to establish this like the Gilroy Garlic Festival that had a 40-year run, and it has benefited that area around Gilroy, and I believe we can have the same benefit here.
That is, well, it's lovely to meet you. Those are really great sentiments. So thank you for bringing those to the Valley and to Clovis, and we'll see you on October. Right. Thank you so much.
And Mayor, I just wanted to thank Vicki for coming. I met Vicki at the Clovis Chamber, and just her positivity and her energy. I just said, you have to come to share with the council.
Like every week.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is that asking too much? Is that kind of overdoing it?
Yeah, thank you for being here. Really nice, really nice. Hello, Ms.
Good
Jeanette.
evening, Mayor Ashbeck and members of the Clovis City Council. My name is Jeanette Ishii, and I'm here this evening with some members from the San Joaquin Valley Town Hall Board of Directors. They're sitting right there. I hope they'll wave real high. We're very excited to talk to you about our town hall. we're in our 88th season, something good. And our mission is to provide thought-provoking lectures that inspire, educate, and inform, and entertain, our audiences. We've been traditionally holding morning lectures at the Soroyan Theater. And we suddenly realized that many people work and can't come in the morning.
Okay, show off, all of you that are not working. Don't say it like that. It occurred to us that some people still have jobs.
Well, we decided we needed an evening venue, and we found no place more perfect than the city of Clovis. So we are launching the Twilight Talk series here in downtown Clovis. And our first lecture will be on September 18th at 7 p.m. With H.R. McMaster. And he's a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General and former National Security Advisor under the previous administration. We're very proud to have the Clovis Veterans Memorial District as our co-sponsor, and the lecture will be held there. Students are free through their high schools. They'll come with a list from the counselors, and college students and law students, medical students are also invited to attend for free. They bring their student ID. Tickets can be purchased on the valleytownhall.com website. And for people who have purchased tickets but can't make it that evening, we're doing live streaming. So we're here this evening to ask for your support and guidance. We want to become part of the Clovis way of life. We think we would add something very positive that the community would enjoy. So I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Oh, and we do have a second lecture scheduled, and it will be on January 21st, and it's called From Sky to Supply. Our lecturer will be Keller Renato Clifton, and you may not have heard his name before. He owns a company called Zipline, and it's not the traditional Zipline you think about. He talks about the use of drones, and he has had contracts with the country of Rwanda to deliver medical supplies and blood all over the country. The FAA has given permission for those kinds of operations to be considered here in the United States, and perhaps for us locally with the blood center and hospitals and health facilities and law enforcement. There are a number of opportunities that could be considered. So he will be our expert speaker in January. So
thank you, Jeanette.
If you have any suggestions, we welcome them.
So great. Well, I think somewhere I saw Taylor. Wave. Taylor works with our community. It probably is our communications team. She and Ty Wood, wherever Ty went. But maybe we can help get it out on social media, because I think it's great for town hall. I've actually never been to a town hall because I still have a job. Like a job thing. Remember that? You guys remember that? Jobs? Vaguely, some memory. Anyway, I just think they're super great. It's a great asset in the Valley, and I think this is wonderful, and I love that you're coming to Clovis. So we need to make your first Twilight Talk a sellout for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Taylor can help to connect with someone. We can get on our social media, and we make sure. If I did social media, I do it on mine, but I don't, but some of the rest of us folks do, so we can get it out there. But I think it's great, and welcome to Clovis, and thank you for testing out the idea here in our community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And people can have dinner here before they come to the lecture.
They can absolutely have dinner here in Old Town only. No, I'm just kidding.
So,
not in Fresno and drive here. Don't do that.
We have posters that I believe you've seen.
Yep.
And brochures as well. If any businesses would like a poster, we have them.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I did threaten them that I was going to make them go last because they thought the agenda was kind of long, and I said, well, like Twilight Talks, but they didn't. You guys didn't buy that, did you? Yeah, no, didn't think so. Thank you all. Nice to see you all. All right, next, please.
Hello, and good evening to you, Mayor and City Council, as well as the people of Clovis alike. It is an honor to be in front of you guys today to celebrate the tobacco retail license policy. So my name is Mila Doctolero, and I am a student of Clovis North High School. And I'm joined by the leaders from the Youth Coalition, API PAC, as well as my hula brothers and sisters from Halau Hula Ikala, which is a local hula studio in Clovis. And we are just here to express our gratitude towards the tobacco retail license policy. I'm 17 years old, and throughout my many years of being in school, I've seen many of my peers lose themselves to tobacco. It really hurts to see so many bright students with many bright futures to have their lives destroyed and kind of put themselves in a dark void where they cannot escape. So we're really grateful that this policy really pays homage to those who have lost themselves, as well as those who will have a more hopeful future. And so thank you. Thank you guys, and thank you guys for protecting the youth.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Can you tell us a little about how the policy came to be? Can one of you share that with us?
Hi, Lynn. This is Bound with the California Health Collaborative.
Yep.
The policy was addressed here in May.
Yep.
And so by the police department. And so we're just here. We have two other speakers that have learned about the policy, and they're really excited. And we have a 7-year-old who I don't know how we could reach it down, but she insists on speaking and thanking y'all.
As she should. Well, thank you all for working through that. I know you were here in May, it's probably only August. Nothing happens that quickly in local government, so good job, May to August. That's impressive. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members that help make the community better. My name is Kara, and I'm a resident and a 6th grade student of Woods Elementary. I was born in Clovis and have lived here for 11 years. I'm here to speak about tobacco stores in the city. We are happy to hear that the city is taking control of enforcing tobacco sales. 85 tobacco stores are a lot for the city of Clovis. I believe that the tobacco retail license program will help manage illegal sales. This will protect our youth, like me and my hula brothers and sisters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Let's get this 7-year-old up here. We need a chair. There's a gymnastics teacher for you.
Okay. Turn it back on.
LaDonna, it went off. There you go.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. My name is Leilani. I have an idea to make the world better. I know if we close some smoke shops, we all can have a better world, because no one will get sick or ill anymore. Because some people in my family died because of using tobacco. Thank you to the mayor, city council members, and members of the community for listening to my speech tonight. And a big thank you to Miss Amy and Miss Val with the API PAC for bringing this issue to my attention. But the work they do for the community. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. I think we have a future mayor in that.
Oh, we call her the future president.
Oh, okay. I'll
So
give you.
They made y'all thank you cards and candy lace. So.
Oh well, thank you for what you do, and thanks for being here. That's so sweet. Oh, thank you so much. That is so sweet.
you know, that's a lot to take in right there. That's a lot to
That
take in.
is, I'd probably draw a different number. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, everybody. All right.
Thank you.
You got this.
I want to say thank you guys for that. You know, reason why I'm here is for the youth. I'm a resident of Clovis here about 4 years now. A little background about me. I'm a computer electrical engineer from Cal Poly. I volunteer at the Rec Center and at the Boys and Girls Club, and I'm here about the youth. One of the biggest concerns I have here is the expansion of recreation. Is an ongoing issue. I've talked with Shauna, I've met with Andy, I've came up with different solutions, but it's something that needs to be addressed. We built a recreational facility back in the 90s. Clovis have expanded way bigger than what I thought any of us thought it would be. You guys have been doing a great job in terms of safety, and in terms of just overall building and growing, but we have left the youth behind and put that expectation on the school system, who's looking to benefit and profit from most of the kids here, unfortunately, in a different type of way. I donate not just my time, but also my resources. I rent the facility out for the kids for open play, open gym, and try to make it as accessible as I can. I'm looking for the city to come through and help either expand with a bigger building. Obviously, Clovis has moved way east, probably way further east than I thought they expected to. And they need a gym, a recreational center on the east side of Clovis. So I'm calling for us to look into how we move forward doing that.
Would you say your name? I didn't catch it.
Eugene King.
Okay. I don't think there's anybody up here that will disagree with you on that. So thank you for raising it to our attention. Thanks for being an active volunteer. And we just started a new fiscal year, so we'll keep pounding the drum for more rec.
One of the things I want to add is I've offered the city to joint partner as a private venture. I'm also a business owner, own a trucking company, own multi-real estate. I bought multiple houses here in the city of Clovis. I also own real estate in Sacramento. I came from Roseville. I've studied recreation in Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Inland Empire, and in Roseville. We are not far off from Roseville. Roseville is an amazing place to go, and we're not far off. The only thing I think we're missing here is recreation.
Yeah. We started a youth commission last year, and we took the kids on a tour of the community, and these were kids from all Clovis high schools, and not one of them had ever been to the rec center. To your point about city going north and east and west, so you're exactly right. Eugene, thank you so much for your advocacy, and we'll come back more often with food, with candy. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That was kind of a joke, but it's not really. Thank you for being here and what you do. Hello, Mr. Ogle.
Well, good afternoon.
Do you have
everyone.
candy?
I do not have candy.
Oh, it's going downhill, really.
And I don't know if I can top any
not
of that.
looking good.
I don't know if I can top any of that. I do love the Central Valley. I've lived here for almost 40 years, and when people say, how can you live in the Central Valley, I say, I love the heat. And so it's just a place that grows on you, and it's been home for a long time. Mayor and City Council, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Terry Ogle, and I'm the Executive Director for the Fresno County Transportation Authority. I've been in that role for about 6 months, and I've just been making the rounds to all the different cities and all the different city councils in the county, just introducing myself and just giving a little bit of information about Measure C. And so I'd like to do that today. Measure C was a half-cent sales tax that was adopted in 1986 for retail sales. It was renewed in 2006, and after it was adopted, Measure C has transformed the transportation landscape in the Fresno, Clovis metropolitan area as well as Fresno County. Measure C has been widely successful due to its focus on transportation needs in Fresno County. To that, Measure C has a great story to tell. Measure C has improved our freeway systems here in the metro area, our local streets, our county roads, our local and rural transit services. Under the current measure, 35% of Measure C's revenues goes directly to the local agencies. for road maintenance and street repairs. And that's distributed by population. There's a formula that does that, but it's distributed by population. Here's a statistic that I did not know, but it's pretty alarming, that over the past 37 years that Measure C has been in existence, Fresno County has been able to leverage over $8 billion in transportation funds because Measure C has been able to provide matching funds that matches state and local funds. We're able to compete because we are a self-help county. Just a little bit of update about where we are and where we're headed. Set to expire in 2027, FCTA and Fresno COG will begin efforts to place the Measure C renewal on the ballot in November 26. A second renewal of Measure C has the potential to raise $2.8 to $5 billion, depending on duration and escalation rates. Measure C3 would continue the regional's commitment to improve air quality, delivering roads and street repairs and maintenance, controlling congestion, providing mobility for all of Fresno County residents through the programs it funds. I want to thank you again for this time you've given to address you this afternoon, and I look forward to coming back and maybe expanding this at a later date and talking to you in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate you being here. I have the privilege of serving on FCTA, so spend a little time together. Thanks a lot, Terry.
All right. Thank you.
I was going to make some comment about you don't work here anymore, but I didn't say that, Dr. Armstrong.
It's funny, when I left Arkansas, I did spend time with my pastor on this same thing. So.
I'm probably not anything like an Arkansas pastor, but the sentiment might be exactly the same.
But I actually left there, okay?
Oh, that's fine. Okay, fine.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Mayor, council members, and my Clovis community. My name is Dr. Kim Armstrong. I am a resident, a proud resident for 18 months. Woo, a long time. 18 months of Clovis. Very, very proud to be here. I'm also the proud president of Clovis Community College. On tomorrow, the board will appoint me as the interim president of Fresno City College. I will be holding that spot because President Robert Pimentel became the chancellor of West Hills. So I will hold that spot until they find their new permanent president. So all I'm going to do is to hold that spot, and then I'll be coming back home. Because I love this community so much, I wanted to make sure that you knew that in the short time that I'm gone, that we have a plan in place and the right person in place to continue the great work of Clovis Community College. You will continue seeing Clovis being in the community, being involved in the community, and continuing to grow, partnering with the city and partnering with everyone who has a need for higher education and to educate all across the spectrum. K through 12 is what we pride ourselves in. We truly create opportunities one student at a time, and we are part of this community. On tomorrow, after I'm appointed the interim, you hear me keep saying interim, president of Fresno City College, right after Dr. Monica Shahal, the current vice president of instruction, will be named the interim president of Clovis Community College. She has the expertise, the knowledge, the passion, and the love for this college and this community. And I wanted to take this special opportunity to introduce you to Dr. Monica Shahal.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Mayor, council members, and community members. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. I want to, in the interest of what I heard earlier about lifting up our communities, reassure you that we have always been involved with the community take great pride in being members of this community, and we will continue to do that work. I am not new to Clovis Community College. I've been with the college for 5 years as the Vice President of Instruction, and absolutely not new to the Valley. I'm an immigrant to this country, and when my parents immigrated to the area, it was to the Central Valley. So this was my first American home, and I'm very happy to be here. So looking forward to the good work while I keep the seat warm for Dr. Armstrong.
Well, congratulations. I'm just saying, in the interim, if you're able to move the college into the city limits of Clovis, I don't know, Dr. Armstrong will have to compete.
I'll do what I can.
Yeah.
I might need to just lift it up. And
I don't know how to do that. You make the road anyway. Congratulations on your new role, and we are here to support you and serve you however we can. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Armstrong, for being here. Did she tell you that you have to come to every city council meeting? Oh, she did tell you that? Oh, gosh. Thank you very much. Anyone else having any public comment? This was possibly the most fun we've had in public comment in a pretty long time. Okay, meeting adjourned. All right, thank you all for those comments. We'll move back to the agenda. We'll start, I guess, at the top with consent calendar. These items are routine in nature. We act on them in one action unless there's a member of the council or the public wishing to pull any of these items. I think we have a request to pull items 3 on the Housing Trust Fund, 4 on the Marjaree Mason Center CDGB funding, and 5 the EDC report. So anybody else wanting to pull any of the items? All right, so anybody in the public? All right, so we'll I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items 3, 4, and 5, if that would be the pleasure of the council.
Motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items 3, 4, and 5.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So first, item 3 is the approval of the adoption of the City of Clovis Affordable Housing Trust Fund Program Guidelines. And I think Vong wanted to remove this, and so did I, so I'll let him go.
If we can just have a full staff report on this, I think it is important enough for the community to know, and then in case the council members have any other input, because I think we approved the allocation, the funding allocation of $1 million into the Affordable Housing Trust a couple months back, and so I just wanted to hear this complete report. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. Good evening. Claudia Cáceres, Housing Programs Manager for the City of Clovis, and
Holly Greathouse, Staff Analyst.
And thank you for letting us know ahead of time. I was able to draft a brief presentation, so if you don't mind, I'll just go through that really quickly. So when we brought the creation of the Housing Trust Fund a couple of months ago for the $1 million set aside in the budget, it was in anticipation of returning with guidelines, like we're doing today. And there's actually a third step. We'll come back, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But let's see. First, I want to talk about, I went too far. The program is set and is meant to apply to the State of California's Local Housing Trust Fund for matching funds. So if we apply for a project that's awarded $1 million in Housing Trust and Local Clovis Housing Trust Fund monies, it is expected to get an additional $1 million from the State of California for a total of $2 million to add to their budget and funding sources. And so the Local Housing Trust Fund from the State of California released their NOFA July the 9th. Application portal is actually not open yet. It's not open till the 20th. And the applications are due September the 17th. Again, matching funds are available, and amongst many requirements for the application, it does require that the city adopt program guidelines before the 17th, publish a NOFA for the selection of a project, select a project, and then submit that project as part of the application before the 17th. So hence a little bit of a rush to get through this in the next month or so. And so part of the city loan guidelines that are in your regulations for review and approval today is the loan guidelines, and we're setting forth for the project that will be selected.
the maximum loan amount will be 3%. It's a simple loan. It's a 55-year affordability period for rentals, very typical. The 45-year affordability for home ownership projects is a little bit atypical, but it is part of the settlement agreement. The affordability covenants will be recorded against any of the properties that are providing housing trust fund monies, and the loans will be repaid out of residual receipts, which just means senior financing gets paid first. Again, as part of the settlement agreement, income targeting is set at 30% of the total housing trust fund monies are to be set aside for those earning 30% or below of the area median household. And then the balance, or 70% of the HTF funds, are for those earning 80% or below of the area median household. So that actually means that our projects will be funding only those development projects that are 100% affordable and not mixed income. Eligible uses, we left this pretty wide open to give us as much ability to fund projects as possible. New construction or rehabilitation, which is the world that we live in, Holly and I, of either multifamily housing or single-family housing. So it kind of just leaves it wide open for us to be able to make the decision once the applications come in. Eligible costs include pre-development costs, property acquisition costs, of course, construction or rehabilitation, and then maximum 5% of the housing trust fund monies is actually can be set aside up to 5% to help with city staff costs. And the criteria is very similar to other projects and programs that we funded here in the past. We will prioritize projects that provide for senior housing or new multifamily housing, as well as new single-family housing units, so new homes. We're going to prioritize projects that meet our local plans for housing, including our consolidated plan and annual action plan for the community development block grant funds. We also will prioritize projects that can provide evidence of site control. So that means, have they purchased the property already? Are there negotiations to purchase the property with the owner? Really just to expedite the process of development of the project. We will also prioritize projects that have initiated or completed site plan review or something similar with our planning department. And then second priority will be given to rehabilitation of existing housing units. And the main reason for that is that we have alternate funding sources for rehabilitation of housing units, like Cal Home and CDBG. And then, so this is what we need to do between now and September the 17th. I'm sorry, this is a selection process for projects once they're submitted through our NOFA. So the NOFA, pending today's approval of the program guidelines, will be made available tomorrow morning. I can't waste any time. It's a quick turnaround. It's only going to be 2 weeks. I'm going to have to close it on the 20th. And I do have list of interested parties of developers and nonprofits across the Central Valley who will be getting that. We will be publishing it. We will be putting it out in our social media. So August 20th, we close the application period. Staff will internally review and provide our recommendation for ranking. We will post that as quickly as possible for public comment and input. We are planning our Citizens Advisory Review Committee to review the list of the projects and the applications the week following August 20th. And then that recommendation, including the feedback from the public comment period and the feedback from the Citizens Advisory Committee, will be presented to the Council for your review of the applications submitted and a selection of a application or more than one application. And that will be at either your first or your second September meeting because it's due to the state by the 17th. And that's it. And I'm open for any questions or comments, edits.
The world's fastest PowerPoint presentation that you both did and delivered. Thank you, Claudia and Holly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Claudia, for the presentation. I think it's assuring to have you at the helm of this because we're actually showing we want to do it, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it well. And I know that this is a fast timeline. My question is, if it doesn't get the match, will the project that is selected still get that $1 million, depending on what it is they ask for, but will they still then be able to move forward with just whatever we have in the fund?
It will be up to staff and city council direction if we want to move forward with just $1 million with that project. It could be an opportunity for them to reapply in the future and hold on to the $1 million. It could be that the $1 million we provide to them is enough, but it's part of the settlement agreement that we apply for the matching funds. So I would recommend we wait and match it. Okay, so the staff's recommendation is just, if we don't get that match, hold on to it so that way we can maximize the dollars that are there. Okay, I like that. And then with regards to the 70 and then 30%, it can go 100% to the second one because it meets the higher value, correct? In other words, it can be 100% going to the 80% below. No. Because that's higher? No, it's the 80. It has to be a minimum of 30% for that extremely low income, the 30%.
Okay. So in other words, 100% can go to the extremely low.
The other way.
It's the other way around.
Yes.
Okay, great. And you know, as Mayor and I were kind of discussing, we appreciate you mentioning the Citizens Oversight Committee having input in it as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions, other questions for staff? Open the public portion. Anybody in the audience wishing to comment on this item? We'll bring it back. I just want to second the recognition of the work that you all have done. And the settlement took a long time, but I think we've got good pieces in it. I think this is a really important step for Clovis. So thank you for leading that.
Do you mind if I just add?
No.
I'm just so grateful to have Holly on my team. I know she's not comfortable yet speaking. I already told her after the 7-year-old spoke, she's giving the next presentation. No.
So how glad are you to have her, because she might quit? No, I'm just kidding.
It has just been a day and night having Holly on my team. Thank you.
Very nice. Thanks. All right. Seeing no other comment about this, bring it back to the council. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of the City of Clovis Affordable Housing Trust Fund Program Guidelines. Second.
So motion is second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. I, on the other hand, did not give you a heads up on item 4 and 5, and you'll see why in a second. Item 4 is approval of CDBG, sub-recipient agreement with Marjaree Mason Center for $51,061 in our 24-25 funds. I just wanted to call this out again because I think it's sort of too important to just leave in consent. So I just wanted to read it out loud and say thank you, and the investment in the Marjaree Mason Center has been the best dollar we've ever spent, and we've spent a little bit more since then, but it's a really important part of our community. And my friend Pam Carlson there, the former executive director, was part of making that so, but I just didn't want this to go unnoticed. So that was really the only intent of my pulling it. So I don't know if you want to add anything, but that was, I just wanted to get some spotlight on that.
They're great partners with us. We meet, we're on the FMCOC executive board with them, and we just really appreciate them even applying for the CDBG funds for our public service dollars, and I'm looking forward to this next year in partnership with them.
Yeah, great. Anyone in the audience wishing to comment on this item? We'll bring it back to the council, and I'd entertain a motion for item number 4.
Before I make the motion, the work that the Marjaree Mason Center does is very important in our community, in our region. I recall, and I want to say it was in the early 2000s, we had 6 homicides in a period of 2 months, and all of them were domestic violence related. And so having the Marjaree Mason Center in our community is important to law enforcement, it's important to the victims of domestic violence. So I would like to motion approve item number 4 of the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And finally, item number 5 is just to receive and file on the Economic Development Corporation serving Fresno County quarterly report. I don't need a staff report. I just wanted to, I saw Mr. Oliver here, and I just wanted to, again, shine a light on this one. Thank you for the work on the report to talk about it in terms of Clovis.
I'm only partially annoyed that you gave Vaughn credit for the healthcare idea since I told you like 3 years ago, but I'm not going to carry a grudge or anything. It's okay, I'm good. But in all seriousness, thank you for hearing us tell us more about the impact on Clovis and the return that we get to our residents. So I just wanted to call that out and thank you publicly. I said it last time we got the report, but there was nobody here, so I saw you here and I wanted to make sure I did that. So thank you very much to the EDC. Any other comment on this item? Public comment? Bring it back for a motion on item number 5, receive and file.
Motion to approve item number 5.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, that completes the consent calendar. So under public hearings tonight, there's a couple of items, and the first is item number 15. This is consider approval of various actions related to a proposed general tax ballot measure for the November 5th, 2024 municipal election. And there are 3 actions underneath that, and let me quickly read those into the record. The first is consider approval, calling for and giving notice of the holding of a special municipal election to be consolidated with the regularly scheduled general municipal election to be held on November 5th, 2024, to present voters a measure to increase the sales and use tax in the city of Clovis by 1%, as required by the provisions of the laws of the state of California relating to general law cities. Requesting consolidation thereof with the statewide general election to be held on the same date, requesting that the Fresno County Board of Supervisors authorize the Fresno County Clerk register our voters to render specified services to the city of Clovis relating to the conduct of the election and approving the proposed ballot measure description. Second item is an ordinance of the city, to consider introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis, adding section 3.3.312 to Article 3 of Chapter 3.3 of Title 3. Did you make that up? All those 3s?
No.
Okay, fine. Of the Clovis Municipal Code pertaining to the imposition of a transactions, sales, and use tax. And finally, consider introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis imposing a transactions, sales, and use tax to be administered by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. Mr. Holt.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Staff's recommending approval of the 3 action items that the council, that the mayor just read off. Going back a little bit, if you remember in March of 2024, staff brought before you the 5-year forecast. And if you recall, it was kind of a wake-up call indicating that our expenses were growing faster than our revenues. And if we continued down the path that we were and continued to spend on city support and operations, at the end of year 5, we'd have approximately a negative $14.4 million ending fund balance. So that was in March of 2024. We continued in preparation for the budget that came back in May and June. We prepared the budget, and the general fund forecast overview indicated that for the general fund, we have insufficient resources to maintain our current operations. The revenues projected are to grow at a slower rate. Sales tax revenues came in $3 million lower than budgeted for June 30th. But we had originally budgeted $31 million. They came in right about $28 million. The only additional staff positions included in the budget were 3 sworn police officers. We eliminated transfers to the general government facilities for capital projects, and we also eliminated additions to the emergency reserve. This is just a visual showing total expenditures and total revenues over the next 5 years. If we continue down this path, the gap between the red and the green indicate the negative $14.4 million I noted 2 slides ago. On June 10th, you approved the current 2024-25 budget. If you recall, it's a total of $359 million, $305 in operating expenses, and $54 million in capital projects. We spend quite a bit of time focusing on the general fund because that's where police and fire are funded. We have a $111 million general fund budget. Of that, $85 million is discretionary, meaning that the council has discretion of the 85. And of the 85, 87% of the discretionary funding is dedicated to public safety, being police and fire. And on the revenue side, sales and property tax make up 82% of the total general fund discretionary revenues. This is just a visual of the $85 million. On the left, you show the revenues coming in. 82% of the total is property taxes at 45% and sales tax at 37%. And on the expense side of the $85 million, you'll see the police take 60% of it and fire 27% for a total of 87%. Now, taking a look at the staffing over the past 15 years, focusing on the Clovis Fire Department, the population compared to sworn staff by year, you're going to see that in 2006, we had a population of right around 90,000, and go to 2024, we have a population of 125,000. You'll see that we have about a 40% increase in our population, and during that same time frame, we actually have fewer sworn firefighters. So what does that mean? This chart just shows a population growth versus response times, the red columns being the population growing. This particular chart goes from 2012 to 2023, and the blue line being the response time. And you can see the direct correlation between the increase in population and the increase in response time, currently above our department benchmark of 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Switch it over to the police department, you'll see a similar chart that just shows a 40% increase in population and an 8% increase in our staffing levels. The city population, as I indicated, is increased by 40%, and the calls for service have increased by 30% since 2007. How did the police department do it? Well, basically, we eliminated a lot of our proactive operations that were in place in 2006-07. And this is just a couple of them. The proactive operations, the gang narcotics enforcement, or the SET team, the investigations, the traffic unit for a city 25 square miles. We have 3 traffic officers for the entire city. Promotional positions were eliminated or delayed. Succession planning has been delayed. The adult compliance team or ACT has been reduced to 1 position. FBI task force has been eliminated. And many of our youth-related programs such as DARE, PAL, and youth diversion have either been eliminated or significantly reduced. At the same time, we've seen a rise in crime. The current crime trends all across our region, crime, including violent crime and property crime, has been increasing. In 2023, there were nearly 800 robberies and burglaries and over 250 car thefts. And taking a look at calls for service and some of the common areas, quality of life calls for service between 2023 and 2021 have increased by 30%. Crimes against persons have increased by 24% from 2023 compared to 2021, and mental health calls for service have increased 15% comparing the 2 years I just indicated. So we focus on the 87% of the general fund discretionary budget is dedicated to police and fire. They have the greatest need. But I also feel obligated to let you know that there's a tremendous need in all general fund departments. Senior Center, Senior Services, we've got a new facility over there. We're 50% increase in the number of patrons that are coming through that door. I've got the same number of staff supporting them, so the math doesn't exactly work. We had Eugene bring up Recreation, and our rec center is 50 years old, significantly underinvested in for a community of our size. We have historically depended on Clovis Unified for a lot of our sporting facilities, but we need to invest more in recreation. A lot of potholes out there with streets. Parks, if you take a look at the pictures, this was sent from a resident at Gettysburg Park, which is one of our general fund parks. And it just shows that what we used to be able to do, we're not able to do now. We're monthly maintenance on parks, and unfortunately, this is what our general fund parks look like. Streetlights need some support. Housing that we just talked about, economic development, IT, fleet facilities. Across the board, beginning in 2006, 7, and 8, we used to set aside depreciation for IT, fleet, facilities, everything. That all went away when we hit the Depression, and we have not been in a position to replace that funding. So we have no funding set aside for facilities, let alone additional staff that we need. So over the past 9 months, we've done a significant amount of community outreach to find out what the priorities are of our community and how the money, the taxes that they provide us, how they should be spent and what their priorities are. We've done 2 scientifically sampled surveys conducted by a third party of at least 1,000 residents. We've done 6 community presentations. We've done digital and direct mailers inviting residents to provide feedback on the community priorities, resulting in over 900 surveys completed with over 400 comments. We also did 10 coffee with the chiefs all around the city in 10 weeks. And we've had 3 budget hearings on similar items. So what did the survey results show? Our community's top priority is maintaining 911 emergency medical, police, and fire response, keeping public areas safe and clean, retaining local small businesses and jobs, maintaining the city's long-term financial stability, maintaining our streets and roads, ensuring emergency rescue workers have updated life-saving tools such as the Jaws of Life, addressing homelessness, and also requiring that all funds are spent locally to benefit Clovis residents. So in summary, the city has roughly the same number of firefighters and police officers as we had over 15 years ago, while our population has increased by nearly 40%. This has increased 911 response times for police and fire, making us all less safe. This measure will help Clovis improve 911 response time and save lives. This measure will also improve response time from some areas of town that are 11 minutes or more to the standard 6.5 minutes I mentioned in all areas of the city. And at the same time, ensuring our city has the needed firefighters and paramedics while increasing the number of certified EMT firefighters and life-saving equipment to respond to emergencies and save lives. Granted, Clovis is the safest city in the Valley and a great place to live, work, and raise a family. But our community is facing a new and growing challenges from the crime and homelessness coming from neighboring communities, increasing potholes on local streets and roads, and increasing costs of providing all the basic services that we provide. The police department desperately needs additional personnel and resources. This measure will help maintain what we call our Clovis way of life. The recommendation this evening is for staff. Staff's recommendation this evening is for council to approve the resolution calling for the election. Item 2, approve the introduction of an ordinance adding a section to Title 3 of the Municipal Code pertaining to the imposition of a transaction sales and use tax. And finally, 3 is to approve the introduction of an ordinance imposing transaction use tax to be administered by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. The 2 ordinances would normally come back on the consent calendar next week. I don't anticipate bringing them back. There's no rush on it. If council had any direction to make any modifications to it, we could bring that back and reintroduce them, but I plan to bring them back probably in September for adoption. Now, how would our community benefit from this measure? The general tax revenue would be used to maintain public safety services, including emergency response time, police protection, neighborhood services, anti-gang and anti-drug programs, repair infrastructure, and provide other city services. If approved by the voters, it is expected to initially raise approximately $28 million annually. And again, if approved by the voters, the city would begin to collect the additional 1% beginning in April of 2025. The revenue raised by the tax would belong to the city of Clovis and could not be taken by or shared with the state or any other agency. Actions following consideration this evening, if approved, staff will provide the documents and the necessary documents to the Fresno County Register of Voters. Ordinances will come back for adoption at a later date. Community outreach will continue. Staff will continue to update City Council on a regular basis. In closing, staff is recommending Council approve the actions necessary to allow the voters to decide on November 5th on whether to increase the sales tax rate by 1% to fund police and fire and other city services. That concludes staff's report, and I'm available for questions, answers.
Thanks, John. Are there questions for staff? John in particular? Juan?
Hey, John, can you refresh my memory with regards to what the Citizens Oversight Committee also recommended? I know we did the TOT, but was this one of the recommendations from that committee as well?
To seek additional revenue sources for, at the time, primarily just the police department, but as a recommendation for the city to look at additional revenue sources to support public safety.
And this was one of their recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. And in the meeting with the community, with the chief and both chiefs, and sometimes with yourself, the response was overall very positive in moving this way as well?
Yes. Over 75% of the people supported us moving in this direction, provided additional funding for police and fire, as well as, and it's also important to emphasize that this would be a general tax, and it would primarily go to support police and fire, but it would also be able to be used for other city services, as I mentioned, recreation, senior services, potholes.
And what would happen to the ordinances if we passed it, but yet it did not pass in the election? Does it just
They go
away by automatically?
Yeah, both of them are contingent upon approval by the voters. If they're not approved by the voters on November 5th, they just go away.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Any other questions for staff?
It's not really a question, it's more of a statement. In 1987, I started as a police officer at the Clovis Police Department. And in this month, in 2009, I retired 15 years ago as a captain. I was able, over the years, to see that when we dealt with the small things, we dealt with the molehills, we didn't have to deal with the mountains. We took care of neighborhood problems when they were small. We dealt with juvenile delinquents and helped their families when they were talking about kids skipping school and smoking cigarettes. We took care of the small problems, and most of them didn't get big. But over the years, we've had to scale back and target what we were doing to the bigger problems. And then the smaller problems started creeping up and became bigger and bigger. With our fire department, with the delays we've had in building new fire stations and staffing, the response times have gone up. And unless you're on the receiving end of a 911 call, where you're waiting for somebody, you don't know how bad it is. I've talked to a lot of folks who worked outside of this community, and they said one of the reasons that they moved to Clovis was because they knew that if their spouse dialed 911, there'd be a fire truck and a police vehicle out in front of their house within 3 to 5 minutes. So they felt safe leaving their families. And I'm concerned about how things are going to be if we aren't able to get the staffing that we need to where it needs to be. And we had 116 in 2006, and we have just this year exceeded that. And we have 40% more folks in town. So this is important. I will be a very strong advocate for this, and I'm hoping that the voters will support us.
Thanks, Drew. So with that, not seeing anyone else, I will open the public comment and invite anyone from the audience who wishes to comment on this to join us at the podium.
Mayor Ashbeck, City Council members, those in the audience. For those who don't know me, my name is Trenton McGill. I'm a fire captain for the Clovis Fire Department, and I am the president of the Clovis Firefighters Association. I have many of my members in the audience who will be here today, and we're here today in support of a sales tax measure for the city of Clovis, and we humbly ask that you all support the measure presented to be placed on the ballots for this November's election. The personnel in the Clovis Fire Department consists of a group of men and women committed to high-level customer service and service delivery. On the side of our apparatus, you will see a slogan that reads, "Service with Pride." Our members pride themselves in high levels of customer service and service delivery, and having worked for more than one department in my career, I can personally tell you that it is not something that we just say. It is something that we live and that we try to provide on every call, no matter how minor or how stressful the situation may be. We as a department have embraced the work ethic and care for others that is what makes Clovis' way of life happen. With that said, like other departments in our city, our ability to maintain and provide the level of service our citizens not only deserve, but have come to expect, is at risk. The Clovis Fire Department has the same number of sworn personnel that we had in 2007. Since then, as stated earlier, the population has grown 40%, from 89,000 to 125,000 people. That has obviously led to increasing calls for service, and with that growth, the city has expanded out the footprint, making it harder to get from point A to point B. I presented a graph to City Clerk Parr I'd like to share with everybody. You have a paper copy as well. It's a little hard to see, but to make it easier for those in the audience, green is good, purple is bad. Okay, red is bad. So with that said, as you see in our graph, our department is struggling to meet the response time standards that we have set for ourselves. This is also the standard that we strive to meet, as we are one of the few internationally accredited fire departments in the area through the Center for Public Safety Excellence. That's an accomplishment we have achieved 5 cycles in a row, starting in 2003. Our goal as a department is to be able to respond in 6 minutes and 30 seconds from the moment dispatch says hello to the moment we enter your home. Response times issues greatly affect service delivery because in our industry, minutes and seconds truly matter. To put it in perspective for you, 70% of our calls are medical in nature. Studies by American Heart Association have shown that a person in cardiac arrest loses 10 to 12% chance to survive every single minute that care is not being provided. So if you live in an area that takes 11 minutes and you lose 10% every minute, the math tells you not a good outcome. When it comes to structure fires, apartment fires, business fires for our local businesses, the National Institute of Standards and Technology research shows that fires double in size every minute to minute and a half. Again, the times matter. This not only puts the citizens at risk, it puts our fire personnel at risk, and it increases the loss for homeowners and business owners. If a sales tax measure were to be approved by our citizens, we would have necessary funding to put measures in place to lower these response times and maintain the service delivery levels that our citizens, our customers, deserve. As stated by Chief Eck and Chief D'Amico on June 10th, the fire department has been looking at ways to lower our response times, and one opportunity additional funding would allow would be introduction of squads, putting them in service much as Fresno City has done. Squads would be placed at stations and operate alongside current apparatus. Squads would be able to be the first out apparatus for medical calls, as they would be staffed with 2 personnel, leaving engines and trucks available for structure fires or vehicle accidents that may require special tools such as the jaws of life. Their staffing would also be able to assist on structure fires, which helps us more quickly achieve what is called an effective firefighting force, which is the appropriate number of personnel needed to fill the vital job duties and roles on every structure fire we fight. Revenue from a sales tax would also allow us the opportunity to build Station 7 sooner. On the north end of town, currently we have a lot of building going on north of Shepherd. Those plans are underway. It's an area that has been desirable for many people to want to start to build and grow. The problem is, for us to build fire stations, if you look at it historically, we don't put a fire station into a new community until we have 60% build out of that area in the master plan. As we saw with Loma Vista, that area began to develop in the early 2000s, and we did not open a fire station to service those individuals until 2022.
Trent, do you mind wrapping up quickly? Sorry, you're 3 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. I want to be fair.
That's all right.
I don't do fair very well.
I'll try to make it quick, but one other service we'd like to look into is ALS paramedics. That is one of the biggest resources we can provide, given that our calls are mainly medical in nature, and it greatly increases the good outcomes for patients. I'll finish with this. To those in the room, those online, and any who may hear this in the future, the Clovis way of life is not just a slogan, it's a standard. Our residents deserve the best in everything we can give them. As citizens, we need to think about what the Clovis way of life means to us. Think about the reason why you moved to Clovis. Think about the things that you've been afforded to you along the way, and decide if you want to keep it that way. Decide if you want to afford that same opportunity to your kids and your grandkids. Decide if you want to keep Clovis, Clovis. Having grown up here, I personally have enjoyed what Clovis has afforded me. I want my 2 sons to want to raise their families here. I want them to be able to go out and play and feel safe like we all did in our childhood. I want them to grow up years from now and see the many familiar faces they saw growing up along the way. We can continue to be one of the top cities where people want to raise their family, but we need to band together and do what is necessary to maintain that. A sales tax for the city of Clovis stays in Clovis. That is why the Clovis Firefighter Association supports this proposed measure. We look forward to continuing to serve you guys as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So in the spirit of collaboration, the police department will only talk for a minute, and because he took 2 of your 3 minutes. Is that right?
I'm going to need actually 10 minutes, please.
Oh, jeez, Louise.
No, good evening, Mayor Ashbeck, members of council. I appreciate your time tonight. For those that don't know me, my name is Jordan Hunter. I am the president of the Clovis Police Officers Association. I represent approximately 110 rank and file members of our association here in the city of Clovis. As City Manager John Holt presented, we are at a standstill with revenue while costs continue to increase and will continue to increase citywide. I'm speaking tonight to urge you to send a tax measure to the ballot and let the citizens of Clovis vote on it. Clovis has been known for being the safest city in the valley and one of the safest in the state of California. This is why many citizens call Clovis home. This is why many people want to move to Clovis, which has been shown true to our growth over the last several years. To maintain our claim to fame as being the safest city in the valley, Chief Fleming provided a State of the Department presentation in 2021 to Council. This was done to educate Council that we are going to have to make difficult decisions as a department on the services that we can reasonably provide to our citizens. As a result of the presentation, in January 2022, Council created a Citizens Advisory Committee to evaluate the police department on current staffing and funding. As a result, it was determined that the police department does not have adequate resources to provide the proper level of service that the citizens of Clovis expect. The police department has been operating with the same number of officers as it did nearly 15 years ago, while the city's population has grown nearly 40%. The police department is faced with many challenges from the growth of the city and unable to increase our personnel proportionately. The police department has had to reduce several positions within the department to maintain the backbone of the department, which is patrol. Having funding to increase our personnel numbers will allow us to have more officers assigned to specialty assignments such as investigations, gangs, narcotics, auto theft, traffic, municipal code enforcement, and youth programs such as drug education. Currently, we have 3 officers assigned to traffic enforcement, one of which is a supervisor, and a city population of nearly 130,000 people, and a city that is nearly 24 square miles. This is not acceptable. We must do better to ensure roadway safety for our citizens and student drivers. Our roadways are busier and there are far too many distractions in society for our drivers and pedestrians on the roadway. I have called Clovis home for nearly 4 decades. This is not the same Clovis I grew up in. The amount of blight issues in the city of Clovis has increased dramatically in the last decade. You can't drive around the city for more than a block without noticing a rundown property, graffiti, inoperable vehicles, trash and debris in front of homes and on the streets. The reality is, we notice this, and we do not have the resources necessary to address these issues to gain compliance from our community members. I recently spoke to a validated criminal street gang member. You know what he told me? Fresno gang members come to the city of Clovis because it's safer to hang out and party in Airbnbs. And that's just the reality of it. These are the same gangs that are involved in criminal activities such as pimping and pandering, discharge of firearms, narcotic sales, grand theft, possessing, and distributing firearms. This is not okay. No level of criminal activity will be tolerated in the city of Clovis. We do not have the resources to proactively address gang members in our city along with the probation and parole. Current staffing levels are not sustainable to ensure the proper safety of our community. Over the last decade, California's legislatures have passed several bills that have decriminalized various crimes. The metrics used to measure crimes were much different a decade ago than they are today. I'm here to tell you that communities, including Clovis, are not safer. Contrary to what Sacramento thinks, the streets are more violent today. The metrics to measure this are just different today. We have seen more assaults on police officers, citizens, increased drug abuse, mental health issues, and homelessness on our streets. To combat poor legislation from Sacramento to address these issues in the city of Clovis, we need more resources on the street. We need to be proactive versus reactive. We have worked hard to maintain Clovis, and we do not want to lose the Clovis way of life. We have seen what happens in neighboring cities when you let go of your city. We don't want to be that city. On behalf of the Clovis Police Officers Association, I strongly ask that you take the recommendation of the city manager tonight and send this general sales tax measure to the ballots and let the citizens of Clovis decide what type of Clovis they want to live in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. Police and fire got kind of equal, so you guys are good. I think you're good. Did they just hug? That was so nice. Hello, LaDonna.
Hi, my name is LaDonna Snow. I was a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And good evening to all of you. I think I've said hi to almost everyone already. But we have a problem here in Clovis. We've never really recovered from the recession of 2008. Our funding, our personnel, and everything has not recovered. And the time is imperative for us to go forward with the sales tax increase. I know we kind of jiggled between do the 66% with just the money going to the police and fire or to a general fund. I think the general fund, 50 plus 1%, will be more palatable to the citizens of Clovis. And I think for that $150,000 we have to spend to get it on the ballot, we're more apt to have a good return. We don't have to tolerate the crime. None of us do. Crime against our officers, crime against our citizens. You know, last time I came in here, I had a nice cast on my arm thanks to a run-in with a juvenile. We don't have to keep doing this. We've got to get the funding to our city to be able to make it continue to be the safest place in the valley. Actually, there's no reason why we can't be the safest place in California. So I ask you to please move forward with this and vote yes on it, all of you, because it is imperative to the life of our city to go forward.
Thank you, LaDonna. I just wanted to give you a shout out, if we might celebrate, your business made its way all the way to the Paris Olympics on the Egyptian team's leotard with snowflake design. So that was pretty cool. Congratulations.
We were pretty excited.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well done. And thank you for those comments. I couldn't miss the opportunity, though. Thank you. Mr. Rollins, how are you?
Good evening. My name is Eric Rollins. I'm a local business owner. I'm a resident of Clovis, and I'm a concerned citizen. Now, generally, I'm okay with this sales tax raise. When I look around in other places in the state, I spent a little bit of time before this came up, we are lower than a whole lot of the surrounding communities. So I'm okay with it, but here's the thing that I always have to be concerned with. When you raise something like this, the increase never seems to go away. So we need to understand that. Now, I think there's a legitimate need, but we need to understand it's probably not in my lifetime, and I'm 55, it's probably not going away. It's only going to go up again. When you raise taxes, do you get more resources? A small amount like this, probably, especially because they have to, with something like a sales tax, pay it. But we have to, it's kind of a slippery slope. The other thing that concerns me with this, and again, I do believe we need it. I've spoken in support of emergency services multiple times, and I understand why you went the way you did. But while I trust the council and the city manager, city manager at this time, if this is never going away, we have to make sure that we're here as concerned citizens to hold council members and, frankly, city manager, all accountable, because we may come a time where maybe the winds have changed. I hope not, and I'm going to do my best to make sure they don't. But there were many cities around this country that decided they needed to defund the police. Well, what if we got the wrong city council? Now you've got a general fund and no guarantee that this money is going to go to emergency services. So we just need to go in with our eyes open and be aware, but I do hope it passes. I thank you for this time.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Others? Hello? Again?
Again. I sit here and I listen in support of raising, but however, I think we all should ask ourselves a question. As an engineer and a problem solver, are we really solving the problem? Are we really addressing the problem? We can consult Fortune 500 companies, and I can tell you the number one thing everybody wants to do is throw money at issues. A couple of properties, I own multiple properties here in Clovis. I'm paying a nice amount in property taxes, which, again, I don't complain about. I love being in Clovis. But are we addressing the issues of what we're doing? I think that's what we all should ask ourselves. I can say $1 million, $1,001,001, how much is enough? Like you were saying, when do we stop? When do we draw the line? Are there other avenues that we are not pursuing? I haven't seen other avenues. Tourism, how do we bring safe tourism in and out? If the population increased, how come the revenue isn't increasing proportionately? It's things that's just not adding up to me. So I'm challenging you guys today to make sure that you're looking at the details.
Thank you so much. Hello, two for you.
Okay, again, I'm Bill Scott. I live at 341 Evergreen in Clovis. I've been here for 40 years, okay? I do not disagree with anything anybody has said here tonight, not at all. But from my point of view, the government always wants to raise taxes to solve their problems. And to people like me, I don't have the money to pay it anymore. I'm getting it from the federal government, I'm getting it from the state government, everybody is adding more money to what I have to pay them, and I'm having trouble paying for what I already have. I will gladly support this on one condition. Every Clovis employee freezes their wages and benefits until we get straightened out with our finances. Other than that, no, I don't want to support it. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Anyone else wishing to comment on this item?
So the action before us is to just move ahead and place it on the ballot, so that's the action before us. Any last call for comments? All right, I'll close the public portion and bring it back to the council for discussion or a motion, if that's our inclination.
I'll make the motion unless you got a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one comment. I wanted to just point out, it was kind of referenced in the staff report, but there were 2 community surveys that were done to gauge where the citizens of Clovis were on the need and desire to pursue this type of avenue to address that need. And due to the excellent work of staff and the community's engagement and participation in things like Coffee with the Chiefs and participating in the community surveys that were done, the 2 surveys, one was, I believe, August of 23, and the other one was just last month. And there was an increase in community support for addressing these needs in our community. And I think that shows 2 things. Number one, the need is real. And number 2, what's most important to me is that our community is engaged and participating in this. And as was, I believe, referenced, I think, was the idea of continuing that community involvement and making sure that there is that accountability, not just, again, because we're here for however long, but other councils can do other things. I do think it's important to make sure that no matter what happens, if the community does want to support this, that they also have an opportunity to participate in its oversight, which would include making sure that, I think it was Mr. Rollins stated, or no, it was Eugene, Mr. King, are we really addressing the issues? Are the things that we're doing with this money making a difference? And I think that's why it's critical for the community to stay involved in what we do here. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. It's another component to what I think this council can do to continue to assure our community that we hear you, we acknowledge the need, and we value your participation in how we all move forward to address that need.
Well, this has been a citizen-driven effort from the beginning. I think when we set up the Citizens Advisory Committee, we went to the citizens to see what their flavor was, and they actually got to dig into the budget to see where we can cut and trim, and they actually did that analysis. I think a group of over 30 of them, 5 from each of us, and they came back with these recommendations. We surveyed before and we surveyed after, like Councilmember Pierce said, and the support grew even higher after the citizens knew what our current situation was. I appreciate the city manager and the 2 chiefs going out to just lay out a transparent picture of our budget, of where revenues come from and where revenues go. I think that was something we wanted as a council. And even in our yearly community surveys, over 80% value safety, value it being, the safest city, and then over 90% approve of the services that public safety has always been given to the community. And with that, I think that is something in which we owe it now to push it forward and say, citizens, well, you get to decide. You decide if you want this, because you are going to lay it on yourselves. And we are just offering you the opportunity to vote to see if you want it. And our citizens, I think, are in tune enough to be able to tell us, in November if they want something like this or if they don't. So I'm all for it.
Any other comments? Thank you to those who commented. I think Trent left, but I think that when he said that Clovis Way of Life is not a slogan, it's a standard. I do think, I've been known to say more than once, our actions up here are really what kind of place we want to live in 50 years. It's not a transaction, this work. It's really trying to build a community. And this is the same question for our citizens. What kind of place do we want to live in? We're at a crossroads, out a runway, whatever all those expressions are. But I do think that's the question in front of us. And I do think that we have had plenty of input from our citizens to say, let us answer that for you. So I think that's, if we move forward, that's the question before us. So with that, Matt, I'll take your motion.
First motion is under item 15A, move to approve a resolution calling for a special municipal election to be held on November 5th, 2024, to present to voters a measure to increase the sales and use tax by 1%.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on that? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Under item 15B, make a motion to move to approve the introduction of an ordinance adding section 3.3.312 to Article 3 of Chapter 3.3 of Title 3 of the Clovis Municipal Code pertaining to the imposition of a transactions, sales, and use tax.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Finally,
Another motion under 15C, move to approve the introduction of an ordinance imposing a transactions and use tax to be administered by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you all for commenting and being here. Appreciate it. All right. We'll move on to the next item, under administration. Thank you all. Under administrative items, these are administrative items that are on our regular council agenda for tonight. The first is a receive and file, so it's not an action item, it is simply a receive and file. Update on additional stakeholder meetings relating to development impact fees for fiscal year 24-25. Staff on this is Thad Avery, our engineer, and Paul Armendariz, our Deputy Public Utilities Director. Gentlemen.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As the Mayor has said, this is a receive and file item. It's an informational item updating council on the outcome of some additional stakeholder meetings relating to the development impact fees that have been approved for this fiscal year. So as a recap of the June 10th council meeting, the fees included at that council meeting have all been approved. They were approved on that 10th. Included in that development impact fee schedule was mostly a 7.7% increase, the CCI, to most of the fees. There are two exceptions to that. There's the fire transition fee and the water major facilities fee. The approved fees go into effect August 12th. And one of the outcomes of that meeting, the June 10th meeting, due to some concern from the development community of there not being enough time to review the fees, staff was directed to meet and continue meeting with the development community to answer any other further questions. So a lot of the discussion regarding this, revolving around those fees, was the 105% increase for water. And really the water conversation for the major facilities and those fees related to that conversation started over a year ago. Back in June 5th of 2023, all development impact fees except for water were approved by council. After that meeting, there were two workshops that followed with outside consultants who looked into two different items. The first item was presented to council on January 8th, and that was a workshop that was provided by Cosmont. Cosmont was hired to look at the overall fee methodology, how the city captures fees, the interests that are included in the fees, the 80% methodology that is included in the fee calc. Cosmont found that our current methodology is sound, that our development impact fees are comparable to other fast-growing cities. And one thing that came out of that meeting is that the city should look at alternative financing options. The second workshop was in April of 2024, and that was two engineering firms, Akel and Stantec. Akel and Stantec took a look at our master plan consultant, Prover and Pritchard, and the way they calculate the capital improvement project estimates that are included in the master plan. And so what they found is that the way that those estimates and the methodology of how those project estimates are calculated are appropriate at a master plan level. They also looked at contingencies throughout other cities throughout California and found that overall our contingencies are on the lower side. At the June 10th council meeting again, there was a workshop that was provided by staff to update and approve our debt management policy that included for CFDs, so that was approved on June 10th. Following that action, there is the approval of all the development impact fees, And then again, July 1st was an update to council following the additional stakeholder meetings from that June 10th meeting. And then tonight we're here again with another update. So since that June 10th meeting, since that July 1st meeting, there were over 130 emails sent, or 130 emails that went out to different stakeholders. There are 3 separate meetings held from that July 1st meeting, and we had representatives, about 3 to 4 at each of those meetings. Included in that 130 email list, that went out to residential developers, commercial developers, other individual interested parties that own large developable land in the city. Staff, as always, is also made available through phone calls or individual meetings. And really, there are three main questions that were discussed. Again, that's the 80% build-out methodology, the financing of 5% for future major facility projects, and the prepayment policy that's currently in place. On July 25th, staff received a letter from the BIA with 10 questions on that. Last week, so about 7 days later, staff responded on Friday with answering those 10 questions. All right, at the July 1st meeting, if you may recall, there's a lot of discussion regarding the 80% methodology, and there was some confusion and in the way that was maybe explained. So the city does calculate, and I'm going to try to break this up in 2 items. So first, going over the general plan and what's developable land, and then how the water major facilities and the projects in the water master plan relate to that 80% build out. So the city calculates charges and fees based on an 80% build out, not a 100% build out. This is based on historical development of annexed properties over the last 50 years. So this is our historical trends that about 80% of our general plan actually develops. This methodology was adopted in 2018, and it follows our master plans that support the 2014 general plan. As we went back and looked through some of our meeting minutes in history, back in 2017 and 18, we found that the building industry was involved in that methodology, and there was discussion, there was FAQs, there's back and forth in agreement with the 80% methodology and how we look at what land may develop. Staff, again, just as a follow-up to confirm that amount, staff recently, just this last month, looked at how our current trends look. And so what we found is that generally, since 2017 and 18, and since the past 50 years, currently, we're still seeing about an 80% land being developed per the general plan. That 80% equates to roughly 57,000 units, and that number is the number that's been in question. So that 57,500 units is what the general plan shows as being developed. Now moving on to the master plan. And so I think some of the questions or some of the concern was that the 57,500 units are paying for infrastructure that will serve more than that unit. So development was paying for more capacity than that was actually needed. What staff did is to validate that is not the case, is that we found that this, we looked at our current water demands, and so what the city is currently using. And we used that and broke that down to a calculation of what each household uses. And ultimately what we found is that the total capacity needed to serve development, so what's included in our master plan, the new treatment plant, the new tanks, what that totally serves is approximately 57,000 units. And so that the development community is paying their fair share, not more than what is needed. To further hopefully kind of simplify this, again, I broke out the general plan and the 80%, and so you have the general plan and what's being developed. You have the master plans and the infrastructure that's needed to serve that development or to serve that general plan. Within that master plan, there's really 2 components. There's plans that are needed for existing users, capacity, and projects to serve existing users, and that's funded by the ratepayers through our user fees and our, our monthly or bi-monthly bills. Then there's projects that are needed to serve future development, and that's the future capacity, future projects. Again, when you bring down the general plan and the projects needed to serve that 80%, that 57,000 units, those equate to each other. And what this shows is that the development community is paying their fair share. They're not paying any more than what is needed, and the projects that are included in the master plan that serve the general plan serves approximately 57,000 units, and that's how many units are paying to to pay for those projects. With that, I'll hand it over to Thad to talk about the two other questions, the financing, the prepayment policy.
Yeah, the question was asked, why do we use a 5% to calculate our finance charges? 5% was initially recommended by our 2017 consultant. It has been an industry standard for planning. Cosmont confirmed earlier this year that the 5% was standard to use. Since the question came up, we also decided to reach out to our current bond writer, underwriter, who believes that 5% is also defensible and prudent for long-term planning. As far as the prepayment policy, the prepayment of a project is allowed according to the city's prepayment policy. The city's prepayment policy was established in 2006 to provide a framework and define the process for staff and stakeholders. The policy applies to projects under review and with existing deferment agreements. Each year, right after council approves the revised fees, engineering staff sends out letters to all developers that have projects affected by the pending rate revision. The letter reminds the developers of where to access resources on the city website regarding early payment fees. The policy lines out conditions for prepayment of different types of projects. This year, there are 5 projects that are in a situation of being close to finalizing a project to meet the conditions for early payment. We believe that 4 of those projects are likely to meet the conditions for early payment before the deadline. As Paul mentioned, we did receive a letter from BIA with 10 questions on July 25th, and we responded to that letter with answers on August 2nd. The letter with those questions and responses has been provided to council on the dais. The opinion of staff is that the additional meetings did not produce information that caused us to reconsider the fee methodology at this time. Staff does not recommend any changes in the fees that were approved at the June 10th council meeting that will take effect on August 12th. The graph on this slide was presented before council on June 10th as a quick reminder of the increase of the water major facilities and why the increase is so high. The blue line represents the proposed cost each year, and the orange bars represents the cost of the fee program that was approved. The separation continues to get greater without increases that get us to the true cost. That concludes our update, and we're here for questions that you might have.
Thank you both. Are there questions for Paul or Thad?
I have one quick question. So back on the slide where it said the 5% methodology in 2017 was initially recommended, have we been using the 5% since 2017?
Yes, we have.
So for every project, that 5% number's been incorporated?
That 5% is included in our fee structure for the water major facilities and the sewer major facilities, yes.
Okay.
Paul?
Still at 80-20. So if the other 20 finally gets built, will the facilities be underperforming, meaning not be able to meet the capacity, if and when it actually gets built?
I think so we're planning years and years out, right? We're looking another 40, 50, 60 years out. There'll be master plans before that time. During the next master plan, we'll take a look and a snapshot of how we're building, what are our conservation, and what does that look like, and it'll be a rolling thing. So I don't think we'll ever get to a point where when we're fully built out and there's another 20% that needs to build in that, I don't think that'll happen. It'll be what's the next plan, what are the next projects. There'll be more projects. If we were to get to 80% and be fully built, we would need additional capacity. I guess to answer your question straight, we would need additional projects to serve any additional unit beyond that number.
Okay.
For new developments.
And then the current calculation of the 57,000 is taking into account the 20% or so that is in current plans that are not built out. It's including all those, correct? So it's including the 20 in Loma Vista, it's including the 20, potentially, it may not be 20 anymore, but the things that are not built out in city proper. Is that accurate? Does it include all those?
Yeah, it's an average over the citywide, so the 20% is 80% build out over citywide.
So, okay, not just the new area, it's including everything.
Oh, yeah. Right, okay. It's an average overall.
And then, sort of that last graph, if we finally move fees to what is recommended, next year, hypothetically, it would be sort of a price adjustment, or more like a CCI, how we've done in the past, instead of this 65, 105, because we have made the decision to delay and then to not go as high in the last 2 years. Is that kind of
I would say yes.
Good expectation?
It should follow CCI unless there's an amendment to the water master plan. Now, we are looking at some alternatives to the master plan to deal with, and this will get really into the weeds, but to deal with our water supply. There were some assumptions made that it could come off the Fryant Canal. We're finding out that that may not be the case. So right now we have our consultant looking at some alternatives, possibly a raw water pipeline like Fresno has to both of their plants to have that security and the reliability. We're not close to doing that right now, but if there were any changes to the master plan, any new projects, that could change the cost that would be used in this calculation. If nothing changes with the master plan as is, it should be a CCI.
Okay. And then in full disclosure, I did meet with the BIA, and so did the BIA address to you the contingency of it being a 2020 instead of a 3018? Was that ever addressed? So that way, and the BIA can address that when they also come up, but they presented us in a meeting, so I just wanted to see if that analysis or discussion was ever brought to staff's attention.
That discussion was never brought to staff from the BIA, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Going back to the 80-20, if we have a swath of land that's part of the 20% that wasn't developed, and in 10 years it gets developed, if I heard you correctly, that extra 20% would have to be accommodated with additional water resources, sewer resources, or would that be something that the existing system as built would be able to handle? Hypothetically, obviously.
Yeah. So like Thad had mentioned, the 80% is citywide, and so I know you're looking at a project. What would happen is we would still collect fees because that last remaining 20% will be at the tail end. It wouldn't be, so we don't have, saying this parcel is only, it's a citywide kind of general observation or calculation, really. So that would be at the very tail end that we would have to deal with that 20%. Should it develop, it would require additional facilities to serve it.
My follow-up question, which is really the reason I asked the question, is in the event that the 20% build-out does not affect, we don't have to build additional resources.
Oh.
The fees that they pay, would those be rebated, or could they be rebated to the developers who paid the impact fees over the years? Have we ever dealt with that, one? And two, is that feasible? It's reasonable for the development community to say, hey, we gave you this money, you built the facilities, you brought the extra 20% in, they paid their fees, but we paid for that infrastructure. Do we get any money back?
I think the best way to answer this is that 20% is going to be not 10 years from now, it's going to be like 40 years from now. But if we ever get to that point where our average development is more than 80% of land, that 20% is not going to have the capacity to build. So we will have to accommodate that capacity by building more facilities. So there wouldn't be in a position to rebate because we'd have to be beyond what our master plan, was built out to.
Okay, and since some of these facilities, some of the 20% may end up being affordable housing that is 3-4 stories high, our infrastructure probably would not be able to accommodate that, so we would have to build additional resources and accommodate the additional growth. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Let me just ask one more question because the 80-20. I know last meeting there was a sort of a fairness and legality issue with regards to 80-20. Can you address that so to affirm or assure us that our calculations are defensible, it is fair, and so that way we can answer, because that was kind of left in limbo, and the industry was going to try to argue that it's unfair, the 80% building out.
Councilmember wanted to, I'd ask the city attorney to respond to that, please.
Yeah, we've looked at the Nolan-Dolan test, the development impact fee requirements for essential nexus and the rough proportionality, and based on the methodology that we've used, we think it's absolutely defensible.
You had a slide on, I guess I have maybe 3 questions. Well, you had a slide on, you had a math problem on it, that's why I know. It was about water use. Yes, water use per EDU, this one. See, that looks like a math problem, doesn't it? In the world of, you mentioned conservation, is there ever a scenario where the water use per EDU is less than it is today? I mean, is this modeled after our kind of current use, or do you build in some, more drought tolerant landscaping and different indoor plumbing, all of that? Does that account for that?
So there could be conservation. We'll see conservation, and that'll be evaluated with the next master plan update and accounted for then. The water code, what the water code states in designing master plans, it states to use the previous 10 years and the highest max daily demand in the last 10 years, and that's what you plan for. So you look 10 years prior, what is the max day use, and that's what you plan in the future. When you do the next update, you go back. If you see conservation, then you go to the next, and it rolls like that.
Okay, that makes sense. And I also met with the BIA, probably the same day that Vaughn was talking about. And one of the questions I recall was about phasing of the fees. So this is a big calculation on a very big number and ends up with this fee increase. Can you just talk about that concept? I inarticulately was trying to describe that there's a cost of a system, which is the cost of a system. It doesn't matter. There's no phasing to a system. There might be phasing to implementation of parts of it, but I don't think that was probably the most elegant response. But can you talk about the phasing question? You could tell me it wasn't a bad response, but it wasn't very articulate.
I guess there's kind of 2 ways to answer this question. If you're thinking about phasing, you're either going to take the whole system and you're going to take out the units that were using a portion of it, and it'd be all comparable. So your cost would be the same depending on how much you take out of the system and how many units you take out of the system. So it wouldn't change the cost of your fee. The other way to look at it is, okay, you have if you split it up and you say, okay, I'm going to have the plant, like a large cost be paid in the next 5 years, and the people that were going to be responsible for that is going to be a smaller portion now, then you're going to have a very extremely large fee. And then once that's phased out, then you have the next 5 years or whatever, and then you're going to have barely anything. Then you have a very small fee. So then you get a very, very disproportionate fee system. So both phasing ways, makes you say, okay, well, we want something more constant so the developer knows what's going on. So you don't want to really have things going up and down. And then the other thing is if you do proportion it out that way, you can end up with the same rate if you take the units away.
And did we ever in this process, when Cosmont, I think it was their study, maybe others, but there were other tools, private-public partnerships and infrastructure funding and all of that. Did we look at any of those options as we imagine this new fee structure here, or, I mean, this is like our historical pattern, which is a fee structure, raising the fees. Did we test out any of those other models to finance this?
I can hand it off to Andy, but there is, that option that tool is a tool that's available now for the development community to do a CFD. Now there's a policy in place that was worked on by city admin and our city legal team, and so, it hasn't been used. I think years ago, there are a couple projects actually that did a CFD, but from that recent discussion to where we're at now, it hasn't been. It's been a little too short, but that is a tool that can be used.
And if a developer wanted to, use that tool, how does that live with these fees? How do they coexist?
So the fees are a separate conversation. The financing tools are additional access to public markets, public debt that could reduce the capital needed for a developer to produce on their own balance sheets at the time of development. But the fee is the fee, correct.
Okay. Okay.
And one other question. Yeah. I also met with the BIA and city staff, but in one of the conversations, it was talking about the differences in construction costs. And our fees are based on the construction costs that we come up with. Is that correct?
So our fees, specifically the water master plan facilities, P&P did a study. They got a whole bunch of bid costs from different types of projects that were relatively the same of our types of projects that we have going on, and those were comparable to get the cost of our system.
And then just a reminder, the projects that are included in this fee that we're talking about are the large major facilities, of the large projects, the treatment plants, the tanks. They're not built every day. Right. I don't think the development community is really building those. They're large city projects that are serving the larger system. The smaller pipelines, they're in a different fee category, oversize over depth, and so the development communities that are coming in and building that internal to their development, adjacent to the development, they're being reimbursed for those projects separately in a different fee category. But again, these are the larger infrastructure needs.
All right, if there's no other comments, let's open the public comment and invite some discussion. And contrary to my past performance, we're going to try to hold it to 5 minutes. Oh, you guys didn't tell me that. Okay, 3 minutes. You do it? Well, then it's 2.5 for you.
Sir, can you turn on your mic for us?
There you go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Also a member of the Fresno BIA board. I'm here to talk about the fees. The board came to me and asked me to look at the fee, the proposed fee of $12,256 per EDU, and I broke that into 3 components. One was the infrastructure. We got to build stuff. That came out to $6,375 per unit. We had the existing water bond debt service at $432 a unit, which left this finance component at about $5,500 a unit. That gives you a fee of $12,256 compared to Soroveo at $6,400, Riverstone $7,100, Roseville at $7,300. So why is Clovis so much higher? And it's this finance component. So we're going to build $366 million of infrastructure, and we're going to pay $313 million in financing. So, can we phase those improvements over time and minimize the need for financing? And that was kind of one of the questions I had. And then also, sorry about that. The phasing and a cash flow. So we have fees coming in, so if we're collecting fees along the way, we're not financing 100% of those costs. Staff's analysis shows that we're financing, a majority of those costs for 30 years. Well, let's get a cash flow, determine what that finance exposure is. So in closing, I would just suggest that we go with staff's recommendation and say, okay, we'll pay the water bond revenue fee and we'll pay the finance costs. We won't argue construction costs and contingencies. That's 6,870 unit, but let's defer the finance component until a proper cash flow analysis is done to determine what that exposure is.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much.
I have a question, Greg. Okay. So the financing is more the percentage, not the phasing, or both?
Well, it is. We're also the master plan engineer for Tesoro Viejo, and so we built a wastewater treatment plant. We didn't spend the entire cost day one.
Yeah.
We built the first quarter of the plant. We built the plant, but then we built the first quarter of the module. So we had, in the case of the city, it's a $100 million facility. In the case of Tesoro Viejo, that was 40% of the total to build the initial construction. So the rest of it gets paid with out of connection fees over time. And the same with pipes and water tanks. We have a year-by-year cash flow for Tesoro, so I can tell you what needs to come online when. We're collecting connection fees this entire time and minimize that need for financing and cash flow. I mean, other methods that we use, you know, we talked about, our staff presented, you know, prepayment of fees, but, you know, fee credits. So we're doing a project in the city of Dixon.
Let me go back to the phasing question. So we'll take the Tesoro example.
Mm-hmm.
So is that 40% spread over all the units or only a portion of units? Because I think from what I'm hearing, understanding from staff is if we phase it, we would charge a smaller number of EDUs to pay for that initial phase, which would potentially be even higher because there's a smaller denominator now you're dividing by. So are you saying phase but still divided by 57.5?
Yeah, so...
and so I want to understand those two scenarios.
So when I talk of phasing, I'm talking of phasing cash flow. The number's the number. I'm not arguing the city number.
Okay.
The plant is $100 million divided by the 750 units, comes up with the fee. Everybody pays the fee and it all pays debt service. But they're financing that 100%. That financing of the treatment facilities in the fee as is proposed is $2,500 a unit in just finance charge. So what I'm saying on the phasing is if you phase the improvements, you don't have that finance component. You can use fee credits. You can use the reimbursement agreements. So you're not financing it, you're getting it paid for. You know, the cost to carry at 5% is in their analysis is extremely high, and it's, I do fees throughout the state. And, you know, when I look at the finance fees of $5,500 a unit, it's considerably higher than I've seen elsewhere. So all I'm saying is, you know, if I'm collecting $1 million in building permits and I got a $2 million improvement, okay, I got to finance $1 million of it. I'm not financing $2 million of it. And that's why I'm not saying there's no finance component to the analysis. I think it is overstated.
I'm really torn on that one. So are you able to help explain what he just said so that way because I understood how you described to me the phasing defense for why we are going what we're doing, but what he just said.
So the way he's talking about phasing is different how I was assuming. So his description of phasing is what we are doing. We're not building the whole system now. We're just collecting for the system now. So to pay for it over time. And to case in point is when you have to build a large facility in the beginning of a project, which is what we did with the original treatment plant, water treatment plant, we had to bond for it. We didn't have the cash up front because you're not collecting fees in the beginning to pay for it in cash. Therefore, you bond for it, you get that cash, you build that facility, you only bond for just the cost of that facility, and then your fees are paying the debt service for that facility, and then until it runs out, and then you hopefully will have cash flow at that end of that time to pay for something else. The issue with us right now is our cash flow is nil. our fees coming in are pretty much paying for the debt service of the bonds that we had for the original plan. So if we don't have a cash flow model right now, but if history serves us well, by the time that that our bond debt service is up in the next 4 years for the water treatment plant, development is showing us that they're going to need facilities prior to that. So we're not going to have cash on hand to build a large facilities, so we're going to have to bond for it again. And it just puts us in the next phase of, okay, now we're bonding for that, we're paying for the debt service of that, so most likely we're going to be bonding for everything going forward.
And I may offer a suggestion. So there are other methods of, you know, I'm focused on the financing cost. The improvement's the improvement, but that finance component. So other projects that we're working on, City of Dixon, smaller city, they don't have money. The development community, in that case, they need a well. The well's $4 million. The development community is constructing it, and they're going to take fee credits against the first 700 building permits. There is no finance component to the fee because the developer is covering it. There's other finance programs. You talked about CFDs, but there's also enhanced infrastructure finance districts. There are, you know, the prepayment of fees. There's development agreements. We've done different methods all over. Roseville was mentioned tonight. They're a proponent. They do both fee credits and development agreements. They negotiate with the developers and say, hey, we want you to do X, Y, and Z and build this stuff for us, and in return, you get these credits and reimbursements. Again, there's no finance component to that model. And so that's why we were looking to work with staff and some experts. I'm not an expert in the whole finance component over the next, 3 months. One is to have a cash flow. We can't do this analysis without a cash flow of what needs to come on when. We have 800 units a year absorbed. We should know what we need when. And then it's a matter of how do you finance what you need when you need it.
So what do you hear in what he just said?
So we're looking for the developer to come up with these ideas. They've thrown the question out to us, hey, is there another way that we can, take credits, we can get through, putting up the money and avoid the finance charges. We haven't heard an answer to it yet. So all we can do is move forward knowing that we're going to have to bond, we're going to have to charge the finance charges until we hear of a new way of doing it.
Go ahead.
Oh, that was.
Oh, sorry.
I was, if I may, Mayor.
Of course.
On the fee credit side too, in a cash flow, if you're offering fee credits, how are you paying the existing debt that's on schedule right now? So you're not collecting the fee to pay off the debt. Additionally, you're not collecting, if you're offering fee credits, you're not collecting fees to pay other developers who may have constructed some of the major facilities and are waiting in line for reimbursement. So we're having to collect fees to pay the debt, reimburse, and pay for larger projects. So it might solve a small portion, but I still don't know how you get out of not financing the large projects. It's not a $4 million well, it's a $100 million plant. I don't think you can have a developer build that, or a tank, a $50 million tank. It's a large projects.
So we could be here all night as we were last time. And I think we're all, I don't know, this is not the place to have this conversation. So when I was talking to the BIA, to be fully transparent, I just said, I don't think we can wait anymore, but this is not this is not written in stone. And I'll just be blunt. I said for 2 years, I've been saying, bring me some innovative way. And this is the closest I've seen to any possible scenario that, again, I don't do what you do for a living. So you need to say what you just said. So I guess I'm not trying to shut down public comment if you want to talk. No, except you. I'm trying to shut you down. No, I'm just kidding. I guess one thing I'll just, maybe to expedite this, we hear you, we see the letter, we've gone over this for 2 years. My suggestion is we do this, and you all come back with what you just said to Thad and Paul and team, and maybe there's something there that an expert who's in I don't know what could think about, and then we can adjust the fees. I don't think, in my opinion tonight, 2 more months or 6 more months. The graph is, we're losing the graph. So I guess I'm not shutting down public comment, but I think what you say makes sense to me, which should worry you because I actually kind of follow that. But it doesn't, I don't live in your world. And this is not the forum to have a discussion about policy math, in my opinion, at all. It's not pretty. So, I mean, I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense, but you had a day to do the analysis. I mean, you did a great job in a short time, but with a little more time and maybe somebody who's got, more the finances piece, I think we could come up with something innovative. This was supposed to be fee structure for the next 20 years. We just can't keep raising fees, and nobody wants to do that. So, again, I don't know why I'm saying this right now, but I just did. So I don't want to, I guess we could be here all night hearing everybody say 5 minutes is too much, we need more time, we didn't see, nobody told us. We could do that again, or we could say, you know what, or let's just move forward tonight and you guys come back with something and work with these really genius, smart people and figure it out. Because I said from the very beginning, if it's figure-outable, it's figure-outable here. If we can't figure it out, there isn't another option, and you're saying there's other options. So that's, I guess, kind of where I land, and sorry that I just inserted that right in the middle of whatever we're talking about.
No, and I agree, this isn't the forum for the discussion, but what I was saying is that if we adopted if the council were to adopt the first 2 components of the fee, which is where you have exposure, the cost of the improvements and the water bond, and we pass it to take care of debt service on that, and we defer a decision, for the next few months just on the finance component. So we'll pay the $6,007 per unit, which keeps you whole. Unless you're going to finance something in the next 3 months, you're not losing any money or it's not increasing your exposure. And the reason this is important at this time is this is the water system. Soon you're going to come back with your wastewater system. It's going to have the same components. And we cannot, as a building community, absorb, $313 million of finance charges that you may or may not pay. Based on my quick analysis, I think that number is overstated by about 2/3. And I don't know the system as well as staff. I had a short time to look at it. So I'm not saying there's not a component of financing. I just think it's tremendously overstated.
Okay.
And is the industry agreeable to that? Even if we delay that middle one, the financing, if later we come back and it is this $5,449, you will pay that back to today, or the 12.
Obviously,
and if it's less, then you pay whatever is less. Now, if that's the way we go, I'm good with that too, because whatever we come up with, you still owe it, if it is it. But if it's less, you pay whatever is less.
Staff would recommend a modification to that, in that they're going to pay the entire fee today, and if we can come to terms that it's something less, then we would
reimburse. Yeah,
yes.
Well, the other way too. I like that way too. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I can't speak for the building industry, and I'll defer to my builder partners that are here. It's hard to pay a fee that is exorbitant like this. I mean, I just gave you examples of 5 other jurisdictions that are in the same realm of $7,000. So to me, just the red face test, something's wrong. But it's hard when you sell a home because you're paying the $12,500 a unit. What are you going to do, refund that homeowner that bought that house? And that's why I said if it was for a short period of time that we just punt on this finance cost, I don't think you're out any money because you're not going to finance something here in the next few months that increases your exposure until we can get this resolved. But we've got to get the methodology resolved, and the cash flow analysis is the way to do it.
And are you using the financing cost in your document that we have on the dais? What was that, the 2065 for the financing cost? Or what are you using? Oh.
When I did
I'm sorry, you're right, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry, I'm sorry, I was on the wrong page, got it. All right, thank you, Greg. Sorry, I was on the wrong page.
I was just going to reiterate, to be repetitive, what Thad said earlier. Where we're at today is a culmination of decisions we've made over the past 20 years. We built a sewer plant, we built a surface water treatment plant. And at the time, council did not like CFDs because it added to the mortgage payment. And so the city took on all the liability of borrowing the money to build all these facilities that supported future development. So keep in mind is that we've got debt out till almost 2040, and every development impact fee dollar that we collect today is being used to pay the mortgage on those bond payments. We have a little bit of money left over. It's certainly not enough to have these major facilities that we need to build in the next 5 years. So any fee that we're not collecting is just going to be, we're going to have to bond unless we increase fees that much more to raise that much more each year. I mean, we've kicked the can down the road for a long time, and staff is recommending we don't do it this evening.
Well, and I think I hear that, and I think the objective here is to keep us whole and reimagine how to do this going forward. So the next 20 years isn't just like the last 20 years, because we don't like where we are right now. It made all perfect sense for the last 20 years. Genius. But now things are different. So I think both things can be true at one time. I guess that's kind of where I am, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, as indicated, I mean, the building industry in general, you know, it's as important for us that you stay whole as it is for us. You're our success and our future. And so, you know, nothing's to be gained by having you come out of pocket. And I understand if, you know, if the finance plan came back and said, hey, you know what, this is the cash flow on it, then I talk to the builders and say as long as it's a supported methodology and meets Nexus has an analysis that you have to meet, then I think it's fair and reasonable. I just am not familiar enough with what your needs are and when you need them.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I appreciate that too. All right, thank you. You used your 5 minutes and everyone else's, 3 minutes. Oh, no. Of course, we talked to you, so that doesn't count. Okay, nobody talked to him. You have 3 minutes.
I will stay well under 3 minutes. Good evening, Council, Mayor. Thank you for this time, Art Kellerisian. As I have had a lot of meetings on this subject matter, and I feel like see a little bit of progress thanks to staff and the industry and the analysis Greg did. I feel like we're getting some progress. So my whole request coming to this hearing, maybe, and again, every builder, every developer, every consultant has a little bit different perspective. For me, hearing that whatever happens tonight, the conversation can keep going. As much as time has been spent, I think that's a good thing. We do need to keep discussing this, especially as was mentioned, there are other fees that are currently being evaluated. So the specific requests that I have that I think it's at the point we've had all these meetings with staff. I think the letter that they sent out in response to our questions, that was a productive way of doing this because it's documented. You have it, we have it, everybody can see it. So as a follow-up to that, I think from a policy point of view, I'm still not completely, I guess, satisfied with the response on the number of units, because that's kind of been a moving target. At the beginning, it was, we only use 80% because only 80% of the city develops. Then we said, well, that's not fair because 80% is paying for the 100. And then it became, all we can do is serve the 80%. And so it's been a little bit of a changing response on that. And so I think, as I understand it, the premise is the current planned units divided by the 510 gallons per day per unit. That's how we got to, we can serve this 50-some thousand units. So I would ask that you ask staff to go back and validate that number today. If the rule says the last 10 years, what is the high point of the last 10 years in the city of Clovis? Because as I understand it, and maybe we can clarify here or maybe it can be at a later date, that number came from the 2017 Water Master Plan. So at some point between 2007 and 2017, 510 gallons per day was the high. I would be curious to know what is the high in the last 10 years, because it's 7 years. And it's supposed to be updated, I think, every 5 years per staff's response. So I don't know if that's been updated. So that's the first thing. So I'd like to look at that. The second thing is I would like for council to ask staff to create a cash flow. We know what all the improvements are. Let's just take it by year over the next 20 years, work with Greg and the team, and just go year by year, and this is how much debt we pay, and let's just make this cash flow and put it behind us. Because it may reveal that, yes, you do need to finance a majority, it may reveal something else. So I think because as I understand from this response, there is no cash flow, let's create one. And then I think the third one, and again, not for tonight, but if you can instruct staff to work with our committees to come up with how do we implement this. Because if we are going to go and let's say build a water storage tank, do we get that as a fee credit on day one? We go do CFD, we build the water storage tank, we build the well, we put the pipelines in. Do we get that immediately as a fee reimbursement? Or as we understand it, especially with sewer, maybe less so with water, we have to first pay debt and then you're like third in line. No, I can speak at least for we wouldn't do that. I don't know about the rest of the builders, but that's like double paying, right? You're gonna pay a fee today, and you're gonna build the improvements, and you're gonna wait in line. So I think the implementation is very important, and there was some good questions asked, like, what happens if we build it for less? So let's say on the books, it's a $30 million water tank. I don't know if that's the number, but let's say it is, and it gets built for $15 million because it's not financed and it's built in the next 2-3 years. Now there's an extra $15 million. What, is that a credit to the developer? Does that reduce the fee moving forward? So how does that get reconciled? So I think, back to it, can we verify the daily use so we can actually understand what the system can serve? Can we build a cash flow? And then can we come up with a committee or come up with a memo that says, this is how it works. Okay, we want you, industry, to do a CFD. If you do a CFD, this is how you get reimbursed. And this isn't something we can come up with. Our proposal is going to be, we'll build the tank, we get 100% reimbursement. It's easy, right? So does that work? If it works, great, then we can explore that. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Raquel. Appreciate it.
Good evening, everybody. Darren Rose, President and CEO of the Fresno Madera Building Industry Association. I want to thank you all for listening to us, as well as staff for their able responses. In terms of Greg's presentation, that is the position of the Building Industry Association. I just wanted to reiterate that for him. And I am going to formally ask for a 120-day stay on the financing cost component of this ordinance, or on this fee proposal. We are just looking for collaboration to maybe, as Raquel just suggested, forming an ad hoc committee between the BIA and staff so that we get this right, that we spend time together, and perhaps even council members be a part of that, so that we really get this right. I think that it's really important that you all know that the industry wants you to be whole. We want to find the right thing. At the same time, our homeowners, our future homeowners that are going to build here and build homes here, these are huge fee increases. It makes us uncompetitive. My builders are not swimming in cash. This is not 2008. This is not 2007. So I just really want you to consider that, and I respect staff's position. I mean, we do. There's just a lot of things that need to be discussed, and I think that we're making some headway here by having this dialogue. We want to see, a stronger public-private partnership and to define policy and fee credits made for infrastructure. We want to see this built out and maybe some clarifying language that's agreeable. And then the prepayment policy. We really want to see a simplification process for prepayment. That's another, another issue that can possibly be addressed. So I don't want to belabor this. We've been talking about this now 3 meetings. We've had good dialogue, but on the financing costs, we don't support it. It doesn't pencil out for us. So we're just asking for 120 days to roll up our sleeves. I don't think you guys lose anything in 120 days because you're not financing anything right now. We agree to we agree to your fee proposal. We agree to the water bond component. We want to get this right and make sure that we're competitive for the future and that we can continue to build here in Clovis. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. This is actually all you've done since you've taken the job, is talk about this. I mean, relative to Clovis.
Hey, Darren, can I ask the opposite question with regards to the 120 days? Will the industry be overburdened with paying and potentially getting a reimbursement? Going the other way, instead of staying it where you don't pay, what about the other way in which, you pay exactly what we say, and if in that 120 days we come up with a lesser fee, then we reimburse you. So is the industry okay with that model as well for 120 days? I mean, is it so much also on the industry that, hey, 120 days, we can't pay that?
Yeah, I would need to survey my members and my board to get the response, but I mean, on the surface, that seems reasonable, but I can't make that decision right here.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Darren.
See if I can get this down a little closer to me. I told my wife 7:30, I'm dead meat already, so it doesn't matter. Mayor Ashbeck and members of the council and city staff. I appreciate all the hard work they've put into what they've got. We're not disagreeing with their
Could you give us your name, because I know it is past 7:30?
Yes, ma'am. Walter Diamond with Lennar Homes.
Thank you so
So I
much.
want to speak, because I'm a builder.
Appreciate
Okay.
that. Thank you.
So that you have that and you've heard that aspect of it. I'm going to keep it real
Thanks.
short and sweet. I do appreciate so much the hard work they put into it, and we agree with a lot of their calculations. The finance aspect of it, we've discussed in previous meetings. We, as the builders, and we would like to contribute to that. I think there's other ways to finance. I think there's time in 120 days. We're not saying no. We're just saying give us 120 days to really spend the time, because we haven't spent the time. We got the study late in May. We haven't had the time. There's been pressure on the city staff. There's been pressure on the BIA, everybody to try and hurry and make a decision of this magnitude. I think it deserves, on the finance charge alone, that's it. That's all I'm talking about, another 120 days to really sit down in the boardroom and bang out a deal, one way or the other, however it turns out. That's how I feel about it. Anybody have any questions for me?
Well, maybe the same question Vong asked Darren. Would you be willing to pay it now, and then if you come up with a calculation that's lower, we reimburse you for the difference?
I'll tell you what, that idea makes me, I apologize, that makes me very nervous. And I think I'd have a hard time explaining that to my corporate office, my division president, and feeling good about it.
Okay.
Because I think once it's played, it's played. And I don't want to have to track how to get it back.
Okay.
120 days.
That's fair.
Figure it out.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. Anyone else? 3 minutes. Oh, you're leaving? Nice. Nice. Oh, look, what a surprise. It says 1:09.
Use 2 minutes walking.
Sorry.
7.
3 minutes.
Okay. Darius Assemi, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Just one component of the finance is a 5% interest rate. You have a AA bond rating. Today's interest rate would be 3.7%. That number translates roughly between $40 and $60 million off the finance dollar amount. I mean, so to say let's make it effective tonight, it's really doing a disservice to the new home buyers in the city of Clovis. Someone is like saying you're going to buy a home today, interest rates are 6.1 or 6.2, we're going to charge you 8. That's just not fair. And the delta is, what is that, 1.3, that's roughly 25%. More interest payment you're charging than what, and by the way, you're not going to build all the facility in the first year, but you're charging interest as if all of it is going to get built, because it's a 30-year bond, and all the dollars, the way I read your report, gets charged to every project. And remember, every 2 years you have a CCI, or every year you have a CCI, and every 4 years you're going to get a full update. I think an ad hoc committee, so that we can actually sit down, go over all these details. We bring a CPA, can meet with a city's CPA or CFO, and actually, what is the appropriate methodology to actually, so this, it just makes a lot of sense. It takes this component out, let us review all the details, and come back. You're not going to build all the facilities next month, month after. Whenever you sell the bond, it's going to be several years, several months, maybe sometime next year. Late May is when we got it. And by the way, in terms of methodology, when we deal with different municipalities, again, no disrespect, we love working with your staff, is, okay, how do we make this thing work? Century Builders brought up, Dennis Game said, hey, some of the cities we're working in, I'm not sure what city it is, Stockton or whatever, that they are charging all impact fees through a CFD. It started with a school fee. So the city is coming to them saying, can we make this work? We just put it in the CFD, and everybody ends up paying it. And I don't know if there's a time limit or the CFD goes into perpetuity. 80-20 rule is we've already talked about it at length. I think we got like 3 different answers on that. The first night was no, the 20% is going to get built, but down the road. And then later on it's like, okay, it's really only serves 80% because the water consumption number is 510 gallons per day. That may be true for all of Clovis, but I took a worst case example of one of our homes. Worst case, and I'm going to pass this along. 3,500 square foot home on a 14,000 square foot lot. I don't think you're going to approve any of those going forward.
Probably not.
So, okay. 219 gallons per day.
So Doris, with great respect though, couldn't you just wrap up because you see that zero
no.
up there?
That's my second one now.
No.
So that's really it. So there's a lot of discrepancy in gallons per day. That's one of the largest lots we've ever developed. Well, not ever, in the last 5 years in the city. So I took the absolute worst. We know the overwhelming majority of water consumption is for outdoor use, especially 5 or 6 months out of the year. And that's we just got that a couple of days ago.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. We'll close the public portion and bring it back to the council.
Mayor, do you mind if we allow staff to respond to some of the questions we brought up during public comment?
Yeah. No, I know I don't mind.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to remind everybody that the 5% financing charge has been used in the methodology since 2017. It's not something that's new. It's been around, so it's not like we brought it up 2 months ago. It's been around since 2017.
Okay.
And we've already lost 2 years of talking about not raising the fees. So we continue to push that out. It's just going to be more lost time. And as far as some of Darius's comments, our underwriter that we work with the city has different information about what he brought up as far as the finance charges. They're not as low as what he's saying. And since everybody's talking about Tesoro Viejo, I reached out to someone that actually lives there, and they showed me their bill for the month of June, and back calculated, it was 514 gallons per day.
Okay, thanks.
And Paul, I was just going to ask, so Eric Hill brought up a couple questions about I think it's the 510 that we use, the 10-year average. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, just some clarification on that. The 510, what is used there is the last 10 years. It's an average of what the last 10 years of use is. We went back and looked at last year's average, the last 5 years, the last 10 years. So that all, we looked at all the different consumptions. That's the EDU, so that's used. We're talking about residential, but what we're looking at, there's commercial, there's other uses too of that total use. It's an average of the whole system, so that's something to keep in mind. When someone brings up maybe a 210 gallons per day, well, I can find another home or another location that's using 5 times, 6 times that amount. We're talking about an average.
John, can you guys give an opinion with regards to the stay on the financing costs? Like, what is staff's position? Like, no, we'll work with them, but for now, council, stick with what we presented to you, or, okay, we can stay 120 days. We're not financing right away like the industry is saying, so 120 days, whatever it'll be, and if it is what we've said, they will pay what we have determined. So can you give us some direction on that?
I think I'd just like to repeat kind of what I understood Walter said from Lennar, that it would be very difficult to put the burden on us to keep track of what's going on during that stay. I think staff would recommend to move forward as is. We continue to talk about it. If changes come about because of the talks, then we make changes at that point.
So I understood Lennar's position as they don't pay, though. They don't pay until 120 days. And so that's what was uncomfortable, because if they pay now, it's too hard to track how much we reimburse and what home and all that kind of stuff. So for us, do we want them to pay upfront, and then we'll do the tracking and help them out and reimburse them should it come out to be 3%, whatever it is? Is that our position?
I think our position would be to move forward, with no change, yeah.
Okay. And then in the discussion, if it comes out lower somehow, then we will reimburse them.
Yes, we'll work on it.
Right? That, yes, no, or no reimbursement at all? I just want to understand that part.
I just don't know if I'm in the building industry and I've met with BIA today, yes, we'll work on it, would not fill me with confidence. Can we commit that if the direction of council tonight is to do the 5%, when we crunch the numbers, everybody agrees, hey, it's 3.92%. We get out our calculators and say, we owe you this much money, and you will get it back within the next 20 days. Just throwing a number out there. I would be okay, you took the money, we agreed. If it comes out to 5%, so sad, too bad. Thank you for your money. But if it comes less, they have a reasonable expectation that money is going to come forthwith fairly quickly. Can we commit to that?
The only problem with that, and I'll defer it to staff, but it's going to be that you're asking us to take a point-in-time snapshot on a 30-year projection of estimated costs, and I don't think that's a reasonable request.
You're talking about the interest rate?
Yes.
Okay, and I agree with that in the respect that the 5% is a conservative number that we can defend, because is it not the industry standard?
It is industry standard, and from my understanding from our underwriter is prior to 2014, it was up and down over the 5%, a little below the 5%, above the 5%. So it wasn't always low. Since 2014, it's been relatively low, but it's on a rise right now too. So you get to the point where, okay, it could go over 5 again. We just don't know. So 5% is that industry standard because it's relatively been that over the past 30, 40 years.
But if we work with BIA and the industry partners, and we all agree that the numbers, let's say it's 4%. Do we reimburse them for the extra 1%? Or do we hold that in abeyance for later? I mean, I'm trying to be fair to them too. I don't want us to have a under collection and then we have to go to our retired community and say, I know that your fees are going up because we have to cover our bill on this. Because I would not be in favor of that. The existing users should not have to pay for the developers' stuff, but there's going to be infrastructure stuff that benefits them, and there's going to be state mandates that we have to collect money for and improvements we have to make, but it shouldn't be on the backs of the other users for the new development. So what about us giving money back if it comes less? Or do we, then we have to agree to the number too, I guess. If everybody says it's 3.96 and we said, no, it's still 5, then that's going to be on this body to say it's still 5.
It doesn't seem like it would be hard to figure out how many fees are you realistically going to pay between now and 3 months from now? 0. My point, exactly. So it's not like it's going to be 10,000 units. So I think it would be fairly easy to calculate if this is what the fees you have paid between today or whatever the date is, August 12th, and when you figure this out on October 15th. That seems like you just would calculate based on that if there's a difference that comes. That doesn't seem that would be that. You're not trying to
imagine 30 years from now, cost over 30 years, it would just be the finance charges paid over the last, say, 120 days. I don't think that doesn't seem that hard.
When I guess, do we have the option of not issuing permits during that period?
Well, they can, I mean, if we said, they're gonna pay what they are today. But if in that calculation that comes out it's less, you pay them back, I don't know, is that hard?
So my concern would be 5 years from now when we go out and actually finance one of these large projects, what if it's 6%? Then what do? We can't go back and collect that extra percent. So we won't know that actual finance charge when we actually go out and get that bond to finance that project that's needed. So the 5% is an average. We're forecasting now, it could be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, and it's all those actually it's from now to 40, 50 years from now, we're collecting funds to fund those projects and finance those projects. So it's not, 1 year from now, we won't know what that bond cost or that finance cost will be. It's going to be years out, and I think that's the concern. It's going to be hard to track that, and if it's over that, are we going to go back?
Would you
that's why it's hard to answer.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Would you come to the city council in 3 years if the interest rates are 12%? Of course, nobody will be doing anything, but I mean, it's 8% or some, much higher, and adjust the fee because you got to make up for, the money cost is different?
We haven't done that in the past. We've kept, from my understanding, we've kept a 5% flat because that is the average, and that is what's typically seen, that's what's prudent, that's what's industry standard, it's a 5%. We know it's up and down, but you're collecting that in the fees as 5%. When you actually go out and finance, hopefully that kind of covers that.
May I address that from the industry perspective? Because either we're going to sell bonds to do X amount of infrastructure, we're going to sell I don't know, $20 million, $30 million of bonds, and 3 years from now we're going to do it again. 3 years after that, and each time there's going to be a bond rate that actually I don't know that you can legally charge a homeowner more than what actually cost you for interest. By the way, that's just one component. The cash flow model that Arkell brought up is another important component. So, again, and we don't want to hash out all of these details here, but it becomes complicated. By the way, we did a quick calculation. 5% versus today's rate at 3.8 is $90 million delta. You're going to sell the bonds when you sell the bonds. And whatever the interest rate is, that's what your cost is. You charge the consumer more. Someone's got to, at some point, challenge the city.
Okay.
That's why the 120 days makes so much sense.
It was a really good idea 2 years ago, but we're still having this conversation. Don't say but.
And.
Don't say and.
Okay.
Thank you, Doris. Diane?
Okay. On the financing, I have a different question, not on the interest rate, because I grasp that a 5% interest rate flat over 30, 40 years, what we're talking about, compensates for when interest rates are 3%, when interest rates are 7%, we collect here, and the expectation is industry standards, it all balances out. What I was hearing was more of a question of if we need $100 million to build a project, but that project is not being built immediately. Let's say the first part of the project, laying the foundation, the underground piping, all of that, $30 million, that's the first 2 years. Why would we borrow $100 million at the outset and pay interest when we only need $30 million to start with? So we're paying 2 years of interest on $70 million that we're not even using yet. So is there a way to look at that part of the financing where it says we need $100 million, but we're not going to take it and be paying interest on it when we only need increments of it as we progress through the build? Does that make sense?
So we would only be pulling out what we need. So we'd only be bonding for the amount of money that we need to build the project. So if it was a $30 million project, we'd only bond for $30 million. But 10 years down the road, if we had to do another $30 million project, these are just numbers I'm throwing out there, we'd have to pull out another bond. And then that would have another 30-year time frame on it. So essentially, you're going to always have 30 years on everything you're pulling. And the interest is always going to be the same.
I guess my question is a single project is $100 million, but because you don't build it in a month, is there a way to not be paying interest on the total cost when you only need increments of that amount as you build?
Yeah, if you have the cash on hand to build it, yes, but not if you don't.
I hear you. So, all right, so this is a receive and file item, among other things. I think what is, there's a human cost to this conversation, and the human cost is on all of you, and it's on our staff. I'm afraid that if we say, oh, great, keep talking, they're probably going to what? You're going to smile and go, huh? Okay, this is great. So I want to be respectful. The hours that you all have put in this is crazy. And for me personally, it's just beyond frustrating that we're still hashing this out 2.5 years later since when we started. That's the part that just I can't figure out. So I guess on the table is if we just move forward and you work quickly and you hire a consultant and you pay for the consultant and you work with our staff and you help, you think maybe there was a few things that were kind of interesting, maybe not, and we end up with a number, we'll see where that number is, and if we can reimburse you, then we will do that. We won't think about it, we'll do that. If there's fees that you've paid, you just said you're not going to pull any permits. So maybe you're not going to pull any permits, so maybe there's nothing to reimburse at all. But I in good conscience, cannot keep saying 120 more days. We have done this for 2 years or more. So, and that graph looks like that because of that. So I am totally open. I think what Greg wrote makes a ton of that. I understood that. That all made sense to me. And the calculations and the tools and how do you implement this? I think, Erica, you talked about that's all. If you built a tank for $3 million, we don't have to finance it at all. Yay. So we don't even have to talk about that. But so that's not even in any of this conversation. But I guess for me, we are not going to negotiate a settlement right here. This is just not the way this, in my opinion, we are not good at this, as you can tell. So I'd be inclined to just receive and file. Let's just keep going. And if you want to hire a consultant and bring us back and get us a new number, we'll reimburse you the difference. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I'm at a loss I'm afraid if we say 120 days stay on just the financing cost, I hear you. I don't know how much we could put on our staff, to be perfectly honest. They'll do what we ask them because that's their job and they're great at it, but there's got to be some limit to how much we can do. So.
Okay, I want to get a straight answer. What is the detriment to the city if we don't collect the financing costs right now? Where they'll pay it in 120 days, what it is. So what is the detriment to us with them holding their money versus us holding their money? Right, because they would be paying. So our decision right now is, do they pay the 120 or do we stay the 120? The financing costs.
For 120 days.
For 120 days. So what is the detriment to us if we don't collect that up front, but then get it in 120 days? What is the detriment? Are we just still made whole anyway?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it'd be complicated on staff to track it. I haven't really thought about that.
And what if we
at what point do we come to a conclusion? We've already went 2.5 years without a conclusion. Are we going to go to 120 days and then still be in dispute about it?
And then we agree to disagree.
Yeah.
You know, in 120 days we come back and we put it back on the table, and you guys decide what you're going to do.
But then we get made whole, though.
Say it again.
But we get that money. The money doesn't get, but we get it. So,
not if any unit.
Mayor, I'm stuck with, do we have them not pay or do we pay and reimburse? That's where I'm at.
What's the harm if they don't pay the finance?
Yeah, with me, I trust them with their money much more than I trust them with us with their money. You know, that's just my philosophy of government in general. So let them keep their money, and then 120, if we say it's still 5%, they just pay up.
Have the city attorney weigh in, please.
So I think it's important to point out, the current fee today is not what you approved on June 10th. That fee will not go into effect for another week. if you were to do anything before that fee goes into effect, it starts a whole new 60-day clock on the fee itself. So it's not just 120 days on that. The water fee that was approved on June 10th isn't effective tonight. It's not going to be effective until August 12th. Anything you do to delay that starts another 60-day clock on the water fee. So we can't just say, I don't know exactly what the new water fee approved was on June 10th. Let's say it's $8,000. We can't just tonight or on August 12th say, well, we're not going to charge $2,000 of that fee for the financing charge, and the $6,000 goes into effect that night. The $6,000 wouldn't go into effect again for another 60 days after the final action on that fee. You approved a fee. If you approve a different fee than what you approved, that starts a new 60-day clock. So I think, I'll sum it up, at least in my perspective. I think the simplest thing to do is to go forward with the fee that was approved on June 10th. If there's any reduction in the fee, there's no 60-day clock. You can reduce the fee the next day if you want. You could reduce the fee on August 19th, September, sometime in December, whatever it is. There's no new clock on a fee reduction. There is a new clock on a fee increase. And again, I think it's important tonight to talk about the new fee is not yet in effect. So if you meddle with that fee that was approved on June 10th, it starts a whole new 60-day clock.
So
But if we reduce, there's no,
On a reduction, if you reduce
so if we reduce the financing, there's no new clock.
you're not reducing it. You're not reducing it from what it is today. That fee that you're talking about reducing is not yet in effect until next week. So you can't reduce it until after next week to avoid the 60-day clock. Staying it is the same thing. You're not collecting anything. So, but again, you can't do anything tonight because it's a receive and file. You can direct us to put something on the agenda for August 12th if you wish to do so. But the fee that was approved on June 10th is a fee that's set, ready to go on August 12th.
We can't mess with it.
We can't mess with it tonight because, again, this is a receive and file. You can give us direction to bring something back on August 12th. At that time, the new fee will now be in effect. You could reduce it that night if you wanted to. You could say reduce it by $2,000 or whatever the amount of the finance charge is that night, and that would be effective immediately because it's a fee reduction on something that's already in effect.
Could you say, reduce it by $2,000 for 120 days and then come back and pay us back if we don't come up with a different number? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that you can impose you're going to reduce if you reduce the fee, that's the fee in effect at that time.
So then you'd raise the fee again if you added back.
You'd have to raise it again, but you couldn't collect that 120 days if you reduce it. You're never going to get the developers to repay money that wasn't yet in effect. Because they're only charged a fee at a certain point in time. If you raise the fee 4 months later, then that's the new fee 4 months later, 120 days or whatever. But you can't say, well, we'll hold this fee and you guys are going to owe us 120 days if we're right. They're never going to agree you're right. So,
it is starting to feel that way a little bit, just saying.
Just a quick question on that, receive and file and everything else, but we could still give direction down the road for them to work for the next 120 days to come up with a different methodology on this. Some of the things that were brought up were things, I hadn't heard before either, outside of the 5%, talking about Tesoro Viejo and how they finance some things and then different stuff. So, granted, I know nobody wants to do that, and I know it's hard on staff, but I also want to get it right. If there are questions out there on how to do financing in a different way that doesn't pass on a higher cost to the consumer, which is our citizens that are buying homes here, and they can figure something out along those ways, then maybe something like that down the road. But, sounds like tonight's receive and file anyway, so, but I would like to see people still work towards a solution and get it right. And I know that it's been going on for a lot of years and whatnot, but I do think it's, there's a lot of money at stake on all sides, so
Well, we're trying to get it right for the next 30 years. That's the point of this entire exercise. It's not just to keep doing what we've always done. So I think that's right. But what I'm hearing, Scott, then is that we're just going to accept this tonight because that's what the action is, right? And if we want to give direction.
Correct.
And what are you saying the direction is to next week?
I would say.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that the 120-day process would be.
Your mic.
The 120-day process would be staff and, the building industry working together to look at the different options of financing that may exist.
And to bring it back to us.
If it comes back and staff is adamant, there is nothing else, it's 5%, and that's what it is at the end of 120 days. But, I mean, I'm sure there'll be arguments, and I'm sure there'll be disagreements on what it really is, but I just like the thought of the different methodology that could be possibly put in place other than just saying, well, we've been doing it 5% since 2017, and, you know, when you're looking at a cost of $6,800 and it goes up to $12,000, that's a lot of money in finance charges to get that money somehow, some way into the coffers to pay for a plant in the future. So that confuses it more.
And just to clarify, to receive and file tonight, but the fees become effective on August 12th, and direction from council is to continue to work with the industry and return within 120 days to report out. Finance charge.
On the finance chart. I think no, because that's not what we approved. We can't arbitrarily take the fee that we approved in June and make it a different number today. I don't think so.
Yeah, I would,
next week.
I would like to make a motion to bring it next week with the reduction for the finance.
But then does it start the 60-day clock for the fee to go into effect?
No, it's a reduction.
No, it's a reduction.
Okay. But then we can't fix that 120 days later. We can't put it back to where it was and have them reimburse that. But there'd be no reimbursement. They would just have paid the lower amount, and starting 120 days later, then the new amount would come into effect. So there'd be no reimbursement.
So we'd be just losing that money. The city would be.
Yeah, I don't think that keeps.
Yeah, I don't.
No, don't invite him back to the microphone.
No.
I love you, but no. All right. No.
Can I ask, what's the current water fee, EDU? Isn't it like 8? Like,
It depends.
Today.
It's a sliding scale.
Residential.
Yeah. Because I'm concerned that if council directed us to reduce the financing fee next week, it would be even lower than what we're currently collecting. That makes, with the current, compared to current rate.
We wouldn't agree, we can't agree on a point in time because it's gonna fluctuate. We're looking at a 30-year. So we're never gonna agree on the exact rate that's gonna be used, but staff will continue to work with the industry to come up with something that we hope we can agree to.
I think the question is, it's not the rate, it's the process on how do you get there? What's the calculation? How do you figure it out? That's the rate's kind of almost not insignificant, but that's the least of our worries. But I guess in a negotiation, you have to agree that there's an end point. Because what it feels like, to be perfectly candid, is 2.5 years of just one more time, and you could one more time us, and it's to your detriment. So that would be weird. I know you wouldn't want to do that, and I'm not saying that's what's happening, but just I'm feeling fatigue, and I can imagine our staff is like, really, 120 more days. So I guess if we do the 120 more days, I think the building industry has to. Not that you haven't stepped up, but I think you got to step up and you got to bring your best mind. You got to pay for the study and whatever that is, and work with our team and give us the ideas on the tools that you were talking about. How do you implement it? What role could you guys play? What could you pay for yourself? How do you get fee credits? If those are all the questions, which are totally fair, then I think that's right. But I mean, I don't think that we cannot endlessly have this conversation. I don't think you want council members there, honestly. I can't think of a worse idea, but that's just me. I mean, have we been really helpful up here? I don't think so. So anyway, I think the receive and file tonight, who's talking?
I made a motion to bring back the fees next week with, I don't see how council cannot waive and or stay a fee and then still have the industry charge if it's 5%. But you're saying just because we said it, we can't charge it, but I keep thinking we can. It's our fee, and they will, in other words, stay it. So my motion is just next week, bring the fee back, take out the financing costs, so that way we can work it out. And if it comes out where we still agree with staff, industry pays back that 5% from the 12th till whenever we figure it out. So they still owe what they owe.
So there's that motion. Is there a second to that motion?
How can I be?
You're talking about just the water major facility fee, correct?
No, I'm just talking about the financing costs. Yeah, so it's a water major facility, but just take out that financing. So in other words, they still owe it. We're staying that. Bring it back where we stay that so they don't have to pay it. But then if we come back with the 120-day exercise and it's still 5%, they pay it. So really it's not a reduction. It's a renegotiation, but 5 is set.
Pause on collection?
Can I make a suggestion?
I still think it's better the city collect and reimburse, or
Well,
pay
that's
back.
what we were saying, but we kept saying it's too hard on us. So I didn't mind either way, but I wanted, like, collect it all and then we pay them back, that's fine too. But it seemed like we were reluctant, so I said, okay, then let them keep it.
Dad, what's your suggestion?
We'll take it later.
Well, most developers are deferring their fees. There's gonna be probably minimal that are putting out permits at this time. I mean, there are gonna be some, but minimal. I mean, if they really want to not pay that fee, they can wait the 120 days after we make a decision, and if we decide that it's a lower fee at that point, then they can come back and pay their fees. So if we continue with the process right now and don't make any changes, report back in 120 days in December to council and tell you what we came up with, and then if we lower the fee at that time, then they have the opportunity to pay their fees at that time.
Because they're just gonna defer them anyway, is that what you're saying?
They have the opportunity to do that, yeah.
At great peril, I'm going to ask a developer if that makes sense. Well, it doesn't have a second right now, so it's actually not that great. It's only as great as the motion. It's not quite great enough. All right, so that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Thad. Thank you, Thad. All right, that motion does not have a second. Is there another option here? This is a receive and file. We don't need a motion anyway. We're looking for direction.
We can for staff to bring something up next week if we have to. That's what Scott said.
And I'd recommend we come back on the 19th to allow staff a little bit of time to whatever your analysis you're going to recommend.
I won't be here next week, so I really beg you to bring it back next week. Please bring it back next week. I'll stay gone longer if I have to. Just kidding. Is there any other idea? Drew?
Well, this is receive and file.
Check.
The rates take effect on the 12th. We direct staff to work with the industry, but it's on the industry to come up with the bright idea. And we can't say, well, no, this is your deal. You're the one who said you had wonderful ideas about CFDs and utility districts. We're all ears, but you're going to have to bring them forth. And if it takes longer than 120 days, I don't care. You know, and if we get a great idea that's like, that's amazing. Yes, we can do that. Then if there's a windfall that comes back to the developers, we absolutely write that check and make the commitment to do it, but that's going to be part of the process. But it's not going to be incumbent upon staff to come up with these brilliant ideas. It's going to be on you guys. Because I remember meeting with you 2 years ago, and you brought all this up, and I thought it was a great idea, but we're still talking hypothetically. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, and we can't keep doing that.
So I don't know what we're doing.
So,
We don't have to do anything.
yeah.
So we're just gonna have these go into, we're gonna have these go into effect. You're gonna work for 120 days, and you're gonna solve that and world peace, and you're gonna bring it back here, and then we're gonna reconcile. If we're way off, then we're gonna reimburse you, and if we're way not off and it's 5%, it's 5%. Yeah? Is that where we are? And I think the pieces were just make sure there's clarity on 80-20, because somebody said there's been 3 variations of 80-20. Cash flow question was you, Greg, talking about what's the cash flow and how does that look? And then how do you implement the fee? You pay for this, we pay for that, is it a credit, all of those, or the implementation piece.
But Scott,
CFDs and all that.
that reimbursement has to be something new. That's new, huh? So that has to be something we have to.
For the city to reimburse the developers if it's discovered 120 days later that you were overcharging fees?
That's.
I mean, that would be a legal requirement anyways under the Mitigation Fee Act that you would have to do that, but if you wanted to provide clarity in 120 days or whatever, we could do that. Absolutely.
And I think the question on interest rates, it might be 3.8 today, but it might be 6.4 tomorrow. I think that's your point, and you're all well aware of that because that's the world you live in. So I think we can't create a system that's going to, it might be great today, but it could be a really bad idea in 3 years. Well, fair. I mean, that's fair, but I think we have to manage that. So, all right. This is a receive and file, and I think that is the direction. And I'm going to say bring it back on, please bring it back on August 12th, but we could bring it back on August 19th if that gives staff a little more time to digest this. And the industry, to Drew's point, it's up.
There's nothing to bring back. I don't think we're going to bring anything back on August 19th.
Oh, you're just going to keep working?
Yes, 120 days, we'll continue to work with
120 days. It's up to you, and this is the I was not ever a very good mother. This is the last time I'm going to tell you, but this is the last time we're going to do this, because we're coming on 3 years of this conversation. And it is on you, because I know the answer's out there.
Mayor, can I just have a kind of final comment? My frustration is very similar to yours, although I'm only a year and a half in, but it does seem like what I anticipated last year when, as a council, we deferred the water fee was not to come back a year later and have had done nothing on it. I thought, naively perhaps, that those workshops and that we are going to have, we're going to investigate things and educate us on things like CFDs, like enhanced infrastructure financing districts, all these other options. And as I sit here today and look back on that, I think my biggest frustration is when Cosmont did our analysis. I feel like all they did was tell us that our methodology was sound and everything we had been doing was fine, which, to be quite fair, I would never have questioned. What I was hoping we would find was what you're doing is fine and sound, other options available to you, and what it would look like if you allowed those to be implemented. And I feel like that's the piece of the puzzle that here we are again tonight, wondering what these other options are, wondering what it would look like if there were opportunities for them, questioning how they would be implemented. And that's my frustration, is I feel like we need to be very deliberate in saying these are the specific things that as a council we want to see, not just industry and staff get back together and work, but these are the specific things that we want to see happen. I personally would like to know more about EIFDs. I would like to know if there are any other financing mechanisms out there that industry staff could collaborate on, take advantage of. I want to know what those other models and options, and whether Cosmont can come back and say something. The way we've been doing it may be totally fine and sound, but as we were talking about in the previous agenda item, our population has grown 40% in the last however many 20 years or less. And so those things may need to be updated and looked at. I'd like us to be able to think outside of the box. And I think that's the component that give us another 120 days to talk, but we always come back to the same point. We're going to defer this for a year, but now we screwed up our graph and our, bars and lines are further apart. I feel like we need to be more intentional and deliberate about what we as a council expect for staff and the industry to bring back to us.
I totally agree. So somebody said ad hoc committee. So someone make that. Form that, show up, do the work, get it done, get agreement, and do the work. And I think you guys are open to, you're smart and you want to, everybody's trying to solve the same problem. But I think that is where we are. And I think it's the issues we've already outlined. 80-20, cash flow, how do you implement it, and what are the tools available that we may not be thinking about, and make this work. That, again, 2.5 years later. Did I say that already once? This is, solve it. Solve it. And if it's, I think 120 days is too long, so I'm going to go with whatever. But 120 days, if that's the outside, but I think we've got to implement the fee, because otherwise you're going to, that number is 105%. Next year it's going to be 135%, and that's going to be even worse. So I think that's kind of where we are. I don't know where we are, but that's where I think we are.
Thank you.
That was the receive and file. Thank you for watching this. This is super ugly to watch, but we're really trying to find the solution. And to our staff, we value you, and we are sort of sorry that it keeps going around and around. But thank you for what you do. And for our developer friends, we appreciate you too.
So is the direction clear on bringing this item back at some point before the end of the calendar year?
In 120 days.
December?
First meeting in December.
When do you retire?
Second meeting in December.
Oh, man. Okay, last meeting in November.
We can make it work.
All right, well, I'm not sure what that was besides not attractive, but that's what it was. Okay. Item 17. Sorry. Okay. Item 17 is consider approval of a resolution. I'm not aware of this, right? Amending the 2024-2025 city attorney budget for the general fund in the amount of $1,765,588 for litigation settlement costs with funding from the Emergency Reserve and Planning and Development Services Fund. Andy? No.
Thank you, Mayor,
No,
members of the council. The recommendation tonight is for City Council to approve a resolution amending the 2024-25 City Attorney budget for litigation settlement costs with funding from the Emergency Reserve and the Planning and Development Services Fund. This action allows the city to fulfill the court-ordered judgment in the Martinez versus City of Clovis case. These costs were not available to the city at the time of the development of the budget. Therefore, a budget amendment is needed. That concludes my report.
Now we're talking. That's a good pace. Is there any questions for Andy? Open the public comment. Anybody in the audience wishing to comment on this? Close the public portion, bring it back to the council.
Motion to approve the budget amendment as stated.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Let me turn. I don't know what item. Oh, here it is right here. Item 18 is consider approval. This is a request to submit a letter of opposition regarding Senate Bill 7, Senator Blakespear, on the Homeless Housing Obligation Act. Mr. Holtz.
Real quickly, Councilmember Pierce asked that do we add this to the agenda with consensus of the council. We did add it to the agenda for a letter of opposition. Senate Bill 7 is a bill that aims to address California's homelessness crisis by mandating that beginning in 2025, cities and counties provide housing for their homeless population based on the most recent point-in-time counts. Reason to oppose, and looking at the summary of the data, it's pretty much an unfunded mandate and a financial burden on the city. It takes a one-size-fits-all approach to fixing an important issue. It limits local control and flexibility. It impacts our regional coordination collaboration, and it also talks about the potential unintended consequences. So staff is recommending City Council approve a draft letter of opposition to Senate Bill 7. That concludes staff's report.
And we agreed to put this on last time with consensus.
You did.
Yeah. Comments? Public comment on this item? Oh, thank you for waiting. Microphone.
Sorry.
It's all right.
There we go. Once again, I find myself before this council going, wow, our state, run by one party, believes that it needs to tell us how to live our lives. So the long-term solution is vote differently. I don't know that it's vote Republican, but vote differently. So I hope people are hearing that. I know people that watch this that are not on council, in council chambers will hear that. Please vote differently. I would also encourage you to follow up on the charter city idea. It will arm you with a few more tools to fight back against the unfunded mandates of the state. Every time I turn around, every time I read about government or California government, I hear that they've got this great idea. But in that great idea are all of these rules about how we're supposed to live our lives. I hope that you do take the stand. I hope you vote for this. I hope that you defend freedom, because we can't continue down this path. They've started a ball rolling. At some point, we have to stand against it and stand strong. So I strongly encourage you to approve this.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else to comment on this letter? Bring it back to the council, submitting this letter.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a request to submit a letter of opposition regarding Senate Bill 7, the Homeless Housing Obligation Act.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City manager comments?
Just real quickly, the Youth Commission, the second session, applications for sophomores, juniors, seniors is now open. Applications will be accepted through September 6th. Students can apply either in person or online through our website under the Government tab, then Youth Commission, and Brianna's in charge of this one. So if you have any questions, we can address them to Brianna.
Excellent. Thank you. That's it? That's all right. Council comments? Matt?
Nothing.
Diane?
Kind of in light of all the other conversations we've had this evening, I just wanted to address, it seems like on at least a weekly basis, I'm getting an email, I'm sure my colleagues are as well, city staff maybe even more, about frustrations with landscape maintenance. And what I find most frustrating about that is understanding our landscape maintenance district issues and the fact that the state requires these Prop 218 votes to fund those districts, and it is so incredibly complex and difficult even for me to have figured out, let alone our citizens who just see their landscaping and don't understand, sincerely don't understand why it's like that. And so I'm hoping that at some point we as a council can direct staff or do something to look at addressing that as a comprehensive issue. I think in previous discussions, we've talked about maybe unwinding the districts and looking at a citywide implementation, anything like that. And so I've just noticed a significant uptick in increase in concerns from our citizens about that issue. I know the reasons behind it, and staff is going to have to continue using an exorbitant amount of time trying to explain that to people when they have these concerns. And so that's just something that's been on my mind again. So we talk about fees and things like that, but the idea that people just don't understand how these work. And so is there a better way that we as a city can handle that amenity for people of their parks, of their neighborhood landscaping, to where they don't have to be asking these questions? It's not the fault of the people that we contract with to do it. We don't have the funding for it. There's 100 reasons why we don't, and they're all very complicated and complex. And so that's just something I'd like to throw out there for future consideration as a council. And other than that, I have nothing.
That's come up a few times. I think that's legit. I think you made the comment, I think those pictures were from my neighbor, my friend over near our house. But and I know you know this, but the answer that that's what a general fund park looks like is so dissatisfying. Like, well, wait, what? So I mean, I think we've talked about maybe, and if we are fortunate in the sales tax, that will help, right? But it is a dissatisfying answer. That's the best we can do. The other day when I walked by that park, I felt like I wanted to have a sign out there that says, "This is a general fund park, and this is what it's going to look like." Like, in some ways, to sort of diffuse, you can not like it, but if you tell me you don't like it, I just go, well, I can't help you. And that is so I can see from I agree with you totally. It's a dissatisfier for sure.
Can I ask, since you brought that up, the LMDs, are those subject to general fund, like so the LMDs, the landscape maintenance districts, regardless of what happens in November, these things are still operating on these budgets that, frankly, not everyone in the neighborhood contributes to, and the majority of citizens don't even understand. They're stuck there.
in Councilmember Pierce's initial request for us to come back with something with maybe just a workshop format that talks about, the percentage of the city that's covered by LMD, which is completely separate than the older parts of town that is covered by the general fund, and provide you examples of what we can do, what we can't do, and like you look at Zone 5, which is a relatively newer area, and explaining to them why their park looks like that because they haven't approved increases since 2013. So we'll come back with a workshop to just do a 101 outside the budget process or a rate increase so we can have a candid conversation without a proposed tax or a Prop 218 in this case.
Well, I live in a neighborhood that doesn't have anything, so I don't even have a chance to pay. There isn't a mechanism. So I think it is complicated for sure. So I'd love to see those go away. All right, let's see. Where was I? Yes,
I represented the mayor and the city at a semiconductor seminar and trade show up in San Francisco, and I was a signatory for the mayor on an agreement to work collaboratively with a semiconductor representative who will tout Fresno and Clovis, and Jerry Dyer was also a signatory, a collaborative effort to bring semiconductor manufacturing and associated industries to the Central Valley and specifically to Fresno and Clovis.
Thank you for doing that.
Hopefully everything will come to fruition. We did have some meetings with the folks from Hungary that I was unfortunately in Spain for. And so we had some meetings that I thought were pretty fruitful, and hopefully they'll bear fruit.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. Vaughn?
Yeah, I would like to get some support from the council with regards to having staff and PD look again at our camping ordinance and work in conjunction with the county and hopefully the city of Fresno as well. And one of the main things I would like them to do is to be able to work with the two jurisdictions for our officers to be able to enforce the others' rules, since they all will have it now, because I think one of the frustrations in speaking with Chief Fleming is, they're in Tarpey, so now we can't do anything, and we can't help them even. And so how do we enable each other to be able to best help those who are violating our camping ordinance? And so just to bring something back, to see if we need to add amendments, and then to see if we can get some agreement with the other jurisdictions. But I don't know if that requires council or if you just bring back, but that's what I would like.
Rather than taking direction from a single council member, I'd like the consensus of council to direct staff to take a look at this. I'll work with the city attorney's office and the police department on taking a look at our current ordinance and see if there's any amendments. And then at the same time, we'd reach out to the county to see if there's a way that we could work with them deputizing a city of Clovis, a police officer to work within the county. But I'd be looking for a consensus of council for a direction for us to bring something back.
I had spoken with Mayor Pro Tem Wanatua earlier about that exact thing, knowing that he was pursuing that, and so I'm fully in agreement with pursuing that. Thank you for bringing it up.
I agree.
Nothing worse than 3 jurisdictions and 3 different sets of rules. That would be terrible.
That's all I have.
Just briefly, I went to COG, I don't know, sometime in July. It was a pretty routine meeting. As Terry Ogle from FCTA, we are going to begin the Measure C process, and we'll see how that rolls out. So that's all I would say. And as I've already said, I will be on vacation next week, and so that's it. All right, with that, we will adjourn this meeting into closed session. And we'll be taking action, Scott?
We are not, we are not asking for action tonight, so there should be no reportable action.
Okay. Thank you all.